Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 267. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the Comics Forum, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, Comics, so says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know. On this episode, we're talking lots of comics, Jim, so I'm really excited.
Woohoo!
Yeah, please check our show notes on this one. We actually wanted to take an episode where we tried to focus on just a bunch of current books, just because we've got August coming up, and then we're jumping into this new continuity. So we're going to be doing League of Extraordinary Gentlemen this month. We're going to be focusing on a bunch of titles that obviously are tie-ins to Flashpoint, but then also titles in the DC Universe that are going to be ending that we want to talk about. So we just went through this episode and just kind of randomly as we were chatting, saying, hey, you want to talk about this book? You want to talk about that book? And we actually had ones we didn't get to this week that we're going to be doing more of for next week. And then I think we'll do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen right after that. Just some fun stuff talking on this episode. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Our sponsors for this episode are once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, be on the lookout for this month's August's pre-orders. They haven't put them up yet, but I know I was talking to Zach Cruzy from DCB Service, and he said that they're looking at trying to do some form of bundle for the second month of the 52 titles, so they're going to be announcing that this month on the site. I don't know what it's going to look like, but there's going to be a discount they're going to be offering again, realizing that people are going to have to pre-order and trying to take care of their customers, which I think is really cool of them to do. But not even just the 52 titles. You want to be checking out what kind of hardcovers, trades, single issues, all across comics. They always offer deals anywhere from 35 to 75% off. It's usually amazing discounts for DCBService.com, so definitely go to their site and check them out. That's DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com. In a couple weeks, we're going to be doing League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Volume 1. I don't know if it's going to be in 2 or 3 episodes. It all depends on content-wise what Jim and I are able to put together. But it will definitely be in August. And it's going to be the first volume trade. Jim's never read this one. I have, and it's a great chance for me to revisit this one. It's written by Alan Moore, art and cover by Kevin O'Neill. Regularly, $14.95, 38% off, only $9.27 over at InStockTrades.com. So if you don't have that book, go ahead and grab it. And remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. I also want to give a quick shout out to our contest. I'm going to be announcing the winners next week. At the last minute, we got a bunch of entries, and we had a few short entries earlier on, but then it was great to see the amount of participation that we got towards the end. So I'm getting them and gathering them together to put them up on the website, and Jim hasn't had a chance to see them too, so I'm forwarding them to him in email, and I want him to have a say, in who our winners are and things like that. I will say this, for everyone who entered, you're going to be getting a prize. We have our main 2 prizes, that Legends of the Dark Knight Marshall Rogers hardcover and the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Omnibus hardcover, which haven't been released yet, so those are going to be shipping out to those people when they're released, the first 2 winners. But as far as that, I've got a comics grab bag of stuff that I've put in over the years of trades and single-issue collections, that are complete stories and stuff like that, and things that listeners have donated to the show as well. So I'm going to be giving each of the people who entered, because I just, honestly, I got to say, this was probably one of the most fun contests. They've all been great, but this one in particular, we had a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of really creative ideas, so everyone's going to be getting something. So I want to thank everyone for their patience. The contest winners will definitely be announced next week. They will be going up on the website sometime over the next 7 days, and I apologize for the delay on that. I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody, because we got a nice grouping of entries towards the end, and I was really thank you for everybody who took time to participate, because it was really cool, very humorous, very clever. We've got some very creative listeners, and I want to thank you all for participating, because I was really shocked and surprised. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Wow. I thought that wasn't going to end. Let's talk some comics.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
Jim, it's funny. One of the books, or one of the crossovers of sorts in Flashpoint that I'm really enjoying is Aquaman and Wonder Woman and the Furies. Both of those miniseries, because of the way that they're kind of developing this political intrigue backstory and the backstabbing that's in there. It's funny how a lot of this mirrors, real life. Right now we're going through a lot of political juggling in our own country right now, wondering who you can trust and all that. Not quite to the level where people are killing each other and chopping off heads and stuff, but it's funny when you
We're
see.
Getting close.
Oh yeah,
We're getting close to that. Come on, let's be honest.
Tell me you would be
some of these debates.
Tell me you would be in shock if that happened, like on the news. Kind of like, art imitates life. This Wonder Woman of the Furies series by Abnett and Lanning, I'm really, really digging. It's interesting to see how the two of them came together with the best intentions. They're looking at the fact that this is a world that really hasn't had a strong metahuman presence, the kind of leadership that we're used to seeing in the DC history. And these two are really taking it upon themselves to say, hey, we have an opportunity here to bring our two races together. And yes, it's going to be a marriage of convenience, but if we get together and we show the world a better way, look what we can do. I don't know if I could do something like that. That really takes, because, look at Aquaman is in love with Mira. That relationship's already taking place. So we've had that established now. And you're basically giving up the opportunity to marry the one that you love and to keep that person basically as, your side fling. And counting on the fact that hopefully that person will go along with it. And if they don't, knowing that there's nothing you can really do about that. Because you're making a choice to be a leader. I really like that because this is showing the heroism of these two characters that we know and love. And we really get to see that that's the foundation and the core of who they are, even though we're seeing something very different from them in the present Flashpoint continuity in the main mini. This is a great use of two miniseries, this development of backstory with these two characters. I'm just thoroughly loving all that. I would love to go back even further to see what they were like before they even met. So this universe has really started to captivate me. And I'm hoping that at some point in time, due to the popularity of this, we might get another Elseworld story set in the Flashpoint universe from the past, to see what we missed even further, because I think there's a lot of stories to tell in this world.
One of the things I'm digging about both of these books is there was a lot of unanswered questions that I had when we got our initial exposure to the war and everything that's building. And as the series is playing out, we're getting a lot of those questions answered. And that's the thing I'm really digging from this. They're not leaving too many gaps for the imagination. They're laying it out, but it's not like a boring flashback. It's still furthering the story, still advancing it, and it's giving us something meaty and something of substance, story-wise. So this is the best of kind of both worlds, where we're getting the full story, we're getting the flashback sequences, but we're getting a cool adventure out of it. So it's, filling the gaps plus entertaining me at the same time, and that's something I'm really digging. And just the little questions, like I always questioned the logic that the Wonder Woman had for sinking her own island. They sank Themyscira. When it first came out, they said they sank it to try to kill off the Aquaman and the various other Atlanteans. And I kind of laughed in my head thinking, why would they do that? These are people who can breathe underwater. Sinking an island's not going to kill them. And in this issue, we get the explanation as to what they were actually doing, why they did it, and how it came about, and it makes perfect sense. It's an extreme action, and you see the political intrigue that drove to that point, but it makes perfect sense why they did it. That was something I really needed to see, the logic behind the insanity.
Yeah, that was something that really worked for me on this. We get to see a lot of situations in this particular storyline where things are explained. Plus, I liked the development that Wonder Woman was not only a friend of Aquaman. There began to be a relationship developed with Mira, where there was that whole training grounds thing where Mira's saying, maybe perhaps our guest should learn how to use some of our weapons and things like that. Maybe she would. And you see Wonder Woman picking up the spear and throwing it. But you get to see this little development of relationship between the two, which pays off later when we see how that relationship goes horribly wrong. The manipulation, that's the careful manipulation on both sides here, really due to fear. And that's what I love about this, because I think this is real-world commentary, and it's something we all should take notice of. Being very careful when you fear others due to differences, and letting that drive you irrationally, to the point where people can, play puppet strings with you. And this was something that I thought, again, this is comics taking a look at real human problems and real human difficulties, and hopefully teaching us a better path and a better way. I think this story's all the more interesting because when we first started off reading the Flashpoint mini, we were dropped into a world gone wrong where Wonder Woman and Aquaman both clearly looked like the villains of the story. Now we come back and we see not the villains of the story, they're victims of tragedy, and manipulation. And it adds, seeing these characters and how far they fell because of what was done to them. This wouldn't have happened to them if there had been a Justice League, because they would have been the checks and balances. The other heroes would have come in and helped them negotiate this. They would have talked them through this. They would have acted as friends, mentors, all of that. You can imagine Superman letting this happen.
Yeah, oh God.
Green Lantern, Flash, any of these characters, none of them, if they'd been together, would have. I love that.
Yeah, and one of the things I like seeing is the slow end or slow death of these characters that we knew. Like, even up to, in this issue, we still have, Aquaman showing up, trying to make a peace, trying to, like, when his fleet first shows up, it's not an actual war, it's a display of force. It's saying, hey, let's talk, let's handle this peacefully. And even Diana she's still a little bit conflicted. She's still that possibility that hope could happen, that peace could happen, and then, her own people once again cause some explosions, set things up, making it look like Aquaman's, the Atlanteans are attacking, but then the Atlanteans see they're being attacked, and it's still that whole, Arthur's like, hey, we can work this through together. It's like, that's it. She's crossed over the line now. And, you get these moments where you see Arthur sitting there still, he's not the scarred on his face, buzz top, hardened warrior. He's still trying to be, this ambassador, still trying to have a peaceful solution until the end where he reaches his, breaking point, this is it, no more, we can go no further. And I felt that was just a cool, we see the evolution of the two hardened versions of them.
I really liked the intelligence of him here. Because he recognized, there is a point there where he recognized we are being deceived, we are being manipulated. And he really tried to plead with her at that point. She'd been through so much, though, that there was no listening anymore. And it really set him into a tough position where he was trying to plead with her and say, hey, I'm being attacked, you're being attacked, this is all manipulation, I'm not organizing this. And I think if at that moment she had listened, together, the two of them are strong enough and smart enough, they would have started to figure out who's really behind the whole thing. The death of Philippus was the, final straw, though, for Wonder Woman. Seeing another one of her sisters killed right in front of her, someone she was close to, really was the thing, after Mom and everything. She was willing to entertain, after the death of her mother, at least talking to Arthur and hopefully trying to get to the bottom of what was really going on his end. There might have been some hope there. But both sides so carefully orchestrated what was going on here. And I would love to see if there's somebody else behind these two coming together. If there was, did Reverse Flash somehow have something to do with this in the past? I don't know. It's very interesting how because these are two Justice Leaguers who Flash could have gone to, who were taken off the table. I can't wait to see what specific events were played with in history in order to set this chain of events into motion. Was it one event or was it multiple events that have been manipulated by Reverse Flash through time?
Well, the one thing we know for certain was when Flash got rid of Jay Garrick from the Justice, from the old World War II version, that would have, by that whole process, the Nazis won, and the Amazons never, sent Wonder Woman or whichever version of Wonder Woman you want to go with to the world through World War II. So she stayed hidden during that time. So I think it was just the further isolation, was the probably one of the big foundations. I don't know if there was another side thing on the Atlantean side that would cause his separation. It could be when you look and you see Aquaman's past, just some of the troubled stuff he went through in his childhood very easily could have been some Reverse Flash manipulation of the Atlantean monarchy that would have driven Aquaman to be more of a separatist.
Well, also with no Hal Jordan, with no Diana, with these characters not stepping up, no Superman, no Batman, no Justice League being inspired to form, there wasn't a group of metahumans for Aquaman to team up with to bring him to the surface to be an ambassador, because that was his coming out party, being a part of the Justice League during that time. So it was really interesting to see how that is all playing out. And this is really what Reverse Flash wanted. He wanted the Justice Leaguers so either completely off the table and not present, such as Batman and Superman being ones that can't be used at all, and Hal Jordan, or in this case, so far away from who they really are in situations where they could help. I'm going to be curious to see if these two can ever be reasoned with and reached, because this issue gives me some hope for them. That at their core, they're good people still. The question is, have they fallen so far that they can't redeem themselves? Or would they be willing to say, this world is horribly wrong, and we will help you if there's a better way? So I'm going to be curious to see if these two can be reached, or if there will even be an attempt to reach them by the other heroes, because I don't know if that's even going to happen. Or at this point, I don't know that there would be a reason or an opportunity for them to try and reach these heroes.
I think they can still be reached, and it's going to take the right person reaching out to them, the right person with the right knowledge, and just somebody, just anyone saying, hey, you guys should have peace isn't going to do it. It's got to have that someone with the connection, someone with the understanding of who they are. So I'm thinking, of course, maybe, the Flash coming in, and, maybe Barry, because he knows Arthur and he knows Diana so well at their core, maybe he can reach them. And there could still be a chance, because you think back to the some of the Lois Lane and the Resistance stuff, where Lois is describing the Queen, where she gives orders, but even behind, there's a little sadness behind her, like she doesn't completely believe the message she's throwing out there. So there is some hesitation in Diana. And, with Arthur, he's, furious and just, he's grief-stricken, and there's just that rage in him, over the death of Mira, over the death of all his people, and just where everything's at, that he can, he still has that anger, but I still think underneath him, there is still that person who is saying, hey, we're being deceived. That same person can still maybe be reached. It's not going to be easy, and it's, it may not happen. This series may end without a resolution between the two, but I still think that by the end of the final issue, we'll get some type of understanding between these two, and they'll realize how much they've been played and how better the world would be if they were together. And I think that's the stuff that's going to take to break, the Reverse Flash influence, to fix the world, if you will. It's going to take all of these heroes coming together. It's going to take the Justice League coming together to actually pull this off.
See, I don't know that we're going to get a Justice League coming together out of this. Maybe I'm wrong. And see, now I'm going to correct myself here, because there is part of myself that thinks that the events of this are leading directly into the new Justice League series. I'm not saying I'm right on that, and I know I mentioned that in the last episode when we talked. So I'm very torn. Like, when you say stuff like that, I'm like, well, that does kind of line up with kind of what I'm thinking as well. So I don't know. I'm very torn on that. When I see this ad, they've got that 2-page spread ad of the Justice League, the new team. It is funny how when I see that team together, I can't help but think, it's no accident that book is launching immediately following issue 5. And I'm going to be curious to see how that all blends together. Can we talk about the costumes just for a second, if you don't mind?
Sure.
The new ones. It's funny, the one costume I've had, the only costume I've really had an issue with has been Superman's. And, the other costumes, they're tweaks, and, like Batman, we've talked on the show before about how Batman's pretty bulletproof. As long as you keep the basic costume design of Batman, you can kind of play around with and manipulate that, and it works pretty well. You tend to get away with quite a bit with Batman, I think, artistically. I'm a fan of artists kind of interpreting it as they use them. Superman's suit really bugged me. And you and I were we had a conversation off the podcast about this, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. It's been the one suit that and maybe it is just me having trouble being, the more traditionalist. I really like the classic Superman suit. I will say this ad, this 2-page ad, seeing the Jim Lee version of it, the drawing of it, I'm softening to it. I'm not sold 100% on it, but there's a storytelling reason I know for the suit, so I want to read and see that storytelling reason for it. But I do think it looks good here. I like this version of it when I see Jim Lee draw it. So I don't know. I've got to see. I'm still not comfortable with that one. I do like Wonder Woman's costume a lot in that picture. So it's funny with, I know that they've shown her in recent pictures that she's probably not going to have the pants in the book because she was on the cover and not having them. I actually like this look.
Yeah, I say keep the pants, man. And this look right here, this is a cool looking look. This is a good, there's enough of the classic Wonder Woman elements to it, but it's a modern costume. And you know what? To me, this is a practical outfit for her to be in and for her to do whatever she's going to do. This makes sense.
Wait, Jim. Except that top, there's nothing practical about that top. Because one of our listeners called I think it was a female listener who either called in or messaged in, and I apologize. It was a while back when we were having the discussion about the other suit. And the practicality of Wonder Woman's outfit. That is not a practical top.
Okay, I'll give you full on that. That's more for, guys like me. So Keep the top as it is, but it's still, I think, the other Wonder Woman costume before looked to me like she was just wearing a bathing suit. And that always just threw me off because I'm like, really? You couldn't give her pants. You couldn't.
Did you watch the Linda Carter show though?
Yes.
Growing up, and did you have the issue with it then? Because I honestly, I thought in live action. I'm saying this was live action with her wearing it. I thought it always worked.
Remember, but back then I was just a young little whatnot. So seeing a woman run around in a bathing suit, actually was a good thing. I was like, oh, cool. I was into the short, skimpy outfit for Wonder Woman.
Have you seen it since? Have you seen it since those episodes I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
I think it still holds up.
Well, here's the thing with that. It's when I say that I'd rather these pants and it's more practical. I've never really sitting there saw the costume. Oh, that's just so wrong. It's never thrown me off because that's always been the Wonder Woman costume. Mm-hmm. That's what we're used to. And so there is an acceptance and a comfort level with it. But if you sit there and you ask me to look at it logically, this is a more logical costume to me than the bathing suit. I
like the look, but I'm not sitting here looking at it and going, gee, my gosh, is that practical now? It's not, because it's not.
There's some impracticality, but you need impracticality in comic books, and there is that suspension of disbelief and whatnot. So
I like it, and wait. Let me clarify. I do like this costume, so I'm not disputing you on the like of the costume. I'm just not looking at it and going, my gosh, they've finally given her that practical look.
Hold on, I'm not saying that either. There are still some impracticalities. That was one of the things I always liked about the jacket look that was first introduced with Straczynski was what you're talking about the top. That was a little bit more practical. The full jacket, just, again, if you got your heroes, do you really want your heroes out there, revealing a lot of skin? Especially your, well-drawn female heroes. Do you really want that as the example for the little kids to look at, or would you rather some full type of uniform? Me, personally, I would rather some full type of uniform just because I think...
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wait, hold on. As a kid reading comics, did you really look at Wonder Woman and start going to yourself, man, I'm totally jaded on female character? I think how well written you can put her in a burlap sack, and I mean this for any character. I think there's certain characters. Look at Iron Man's original outfit, that original clunky suit that he wore. And I know this is different than the whole revealing thing, but I mean, that thing was a box, basically. But the thing that made that armor suit cool was the hero behind it and the story behind it. I think a lot of times you can have the coolest looking costume in the world, but if you don't have the good story and the well-developed character, it's irrelevant. So I do think the reason why suits become iconic on characters are because the story driving that suit, driving that character, has made that character iconic. It's not the other way around. I don't think you can have the coolest looking, because there's many heroes over the years that I think have had tremendous looking costumes, but the story didn't match the costume. And that's why you don't see that costume or that character anymore, or that character has been revamped in, 3 different ways since then. So I don't know on that one.
And here's one example that I'm going to pull from when I was a kid looking at the costumes. Mm-hmm. I always thought the X-Men costumes were awesome because it was a team costume. It had that same type of, they weren't exactly the same uniform, but there was that common thread through it. What I got my hands on was borrowing from other people, reprintings of some of the old original X stories. That was my first introduction to the team. Back when Iceman was Frosty the Snowman, where he was just a snowy guy, and Beast before he was the blue fur. That was my very first introduction to comic books. Was that X-Men team, that very first early class where, they had the synchron, and they looked,
absolutely.
I was like, this is cool. And then after I read all that stuff, I was like, oh, what's the current stuff? And then that's when I read the current stuff. That's when I read, the 80s, early 80s X-Men, where there was still some synchronization, some personalization of the uniforms. You get a couple of the relaunches when they brought back, when they had the multiple X teams, where there was some organization, some just conformity of uniform. There's always been like a nice conformity. There's been some times when they're completely every man for themselves, or and there's no
everything after Claremont took over. Yeah. In recent years, there have been some books like X-Force and stuff like that where they've started to adopt like kind of a team color style, team uniform again. But the X-Men, for the most part, Grant Morrison's run. He also, I don't know, did you read any of that, Morrison and Quitely?
Probably, to be honest. Back then, I didn't know the names of the creators.
Okay.
So I'd have to go back and reread, see what I had.
You'd remember if you read Morrison's run, because he kind of reestablished like the team squad uniform concept again. It was actually kind of similar to the movie costumes in some way, in what he was doing there. I went back and comic shops were great back in the day for all those. But post Claremont, so throughout the entire 80s and most of the 90s, the team really had their own unique individual outfits. You look at characters like Nightcrawler, Colossus. Kitty Pryde wore the original suit, the one that you're talking about, kind of as a nod back to that. But really, she was the only one on the team, with the exception the New Mutants, which had their own book. They wore the old X-Men squad uniforms, but that was obviously, again, a nod back to they were the kids that hadn't graduated yet. But that was kind of the graduation of the X-Men. When you graduated, you got your own unique suit. And that was the concept they introduced there. I kind of like that. I like the idea that when you were students, you hadn't graduated yet, so to speak, into being a superhero, you would have your own. You wouldn't have your own outfit yet, but once you did graduate, you got your own unique look, and that's how that all came out. Which Grant Morrison went back to the idea of Xavier's being a school, and really, kind of building this huge society of that. How this harkens back to Justice League, when you look at this team picture that they're showing here, the collars and things like that, I liked how this was one of the things that was explained at San Diego. They are going for a kind of a team style, a team look. While they do have the individuality that we're talking about, like X-Men had during that time, we do have, like, with the collars and stuff like that, slight nods to the fact that these are characters who are on the same team. And I think it's why I'm liking Diana's look on this, because she looks like she's a part of this team. Yes, they have their own unique color sets and styles, and I'm glad they kind of have set it up so everyone does look unique, but there is a definite nod to the fact that these guys look like they're all part of the same squad. There's little tiny nods into the styling of the costume, of armor. Batman and Superman's especially, if you take a look at the two of those, you know, they look like their armor kind of goes together. There's little nods in the Flash's outfit that, you know, kind of echoes theirs a little bit. Wonder Woman's suit, and then when you get to the collars, obviously the collars have been a big source of, I don't know if controversy is the right word. I actually do like the collars, and I like Jim Lee's reasoning behind them, that it is kind of a military look, it's more formal. And if this is the Justice League, if this is a team that's going to be together in a squad, because you and I know we like, you know, if you're talking about not a casual team, this is your heavy hitter, this is your big name team in the DC universe. I kind of like that whole military presence to them, where they're soldiers in that team, and this look is really growing on me. And it's funny when I see him with the rest, Superman, I mean, that's where it's starting to work for me, seeing him with everybody else. Whereas when I've seen him isolated in that suit, it hasn't been working for me.
See, I like it. I really do. But I've always liked a metallic look on the hero, and I've thought that kind of, it looks like something I would never wear, you know. And I don't want my heroes wearing clothing that I think that, hey, yeah, I'd throw that on. Now, as I say that, people like Starman, Jack Knight.
Wait a minute. Like you're running around in the old Superman suit? Well, you know, when I was looking at the old suit, I was like, boy, that's Friday night wear for me. Like, do you listen to what you're saying?
Yes, I did. And I was hoping I could push through it, and without you commenting, not going to happen. But, okay, what I meant by that...
I know it. And wait, hold on. Wait, before you go ahead, you can go ahead and say it. But I'm just being a jerk. In all honesty, I know what you mean. But go ahead, because I actually think you are making an interesting point. So go ahead.
I'm talking like the materials. If you know they're wearing the regular clothing, you know, in a sense, yes, it is tights. Yes, it is capes and whatnot. It's not something I would normally wear, but it's material that I could pull together. It's material I could make. It's something that I could actually build myself. These costumes, I don't think a normal person could build, and I think that is part of the thing that I really like about them, that they are something special. They are something above ordinary, and superhuman people should not be wearing ordinary material.
Yeah. I'm going to make one little joke, and then I'm going to actually back up what you're saying. But I've got these images of you sitting back in a rocker, like needlepoint, putting together Superman suit.
You saw me in my super snuggie. You know, it's when the.
Well, you didn't wait. Hold on. You didn't make that, and that did not look like Superman's suit. That looked cool as a blanket. And I love the whole look, so I'm not knocking it in any way, shape, or form. But it wasn't like the form-fitting suit you would see on Superman. And we've seen, clearly, very few people can pull off that look.
Hey, all I need to do is a little nip and tuck here, a couple extra stitches, and that'd be a full-on Superman suit, and I would look dang good in it.
Now, to back up what you're saying, see, to me, what superhero costumes should be, I agree with you. They should be suits where you look at them and you go, I would love to be able to wear that, but I can't. You know, I mean, I referenced Iron Man. I liked Iron Man growing up because I loved seeing how Stark would keep improving the armor over time, and you wanted to put that thing on. You know, and in the case of Batman's had multiple outfits, and I'm like, boy, I wish I could have that. I wish I could pull that look off. You know, have the utility belt, do other things. Superman's suit, I want to read the story behind this suit. I don't know why with him in particular. I'm so stuck on this because I am stuck on it right now. I'm torn on the suit. I'm not 100% sold on it. I know it's for a storytelling reason, and that's going to, I think, help sell me on it. But it is one of those suits that I'm looking at. Like Green Lantern, slight tweaks to the suit that we've been seeing lately anyway. Aquaman's really the suit we've been seeing in Brightest Day. Wonder Woman's suit, it's a hybrid of the Straczynski suit, the one from that one, which was Jim Lee's design. That one started to grow on me as well, especially in the most recent issue, which we do have to talk about on this episode. Did you read that one? Are you caught up on
Yes.
Wonder Woman?
Oh, yeah.
I think we need to talk a little bit about that for obvious reasons. And it's funny how that issue in particular sold me on. It goes back to the whole burlap thing. you can have that woman wearing whatever suit she wants to, because I liked how that paid off. So we'll talk about that. Flash, again, little tweaks. And Cyborg's suit, I like. It's definitely more techy, less sleek than the suit we saw with him. But what I like about that one is it looks like that doesn't need to be the way it's going. Like, we're going to see that suit evolve over time and continue to evolve. And I think he's a character for some reason. I always feel that his suit should change. You know, this is you're not going to, if you're a cyborg, you're not going to settle for what you got. You're going to want to keep upgrading that technology because that's your whole MO. So I never had an issue with his. It's definitely a change from what we've seen from him previously, but it's not the first time we've seen his costume change. And I think throughout the run of Justice League, his suit should have slight tweaks and changes and modifications and all that to make him more effective in the field. I think that should be part of the character. I think that's cool. So I have zero issue with that. So it's funny how this as a team, I think they look fantastic as a team.
With me, whenever there's like the tech kind of armored, hero like Iron Man or Cyborg, I like them personally a little bit bulkier than normal. Just because I think they need to have the regular normal frame and then something beyond that. Like, you talk about the early Iron Man costumes. I like him a little bit bulkier, not as sleek, because to me that makes more logical sense that you'd have a regular human body and then all this armor around it. And with Cyborg, granted, he doesn't have the regular human body, but he still would kind of be a little bit beyond, a little bit thicker, a little bit taller maybe than the other heroes. It's something for me. When I see that tech, when I see the armor, I want a little bit more mass to them.
See, I'm more of a fan of like the Blue Beetle armor style because it's sleek. But let me clarify. I agree with you when initial appearances of characters who are tech related and all that, they should be a little bulkier because those are the first generations of armor and things like that. But over time, you want to see the characters work with different materials to make it sleeker, because especially if they're flying, you want to streamline that baby. You don't want to be flying around in a box because that box is not going to be aerodynamic, and that's going to be cutting down on your speed. So these characters over time should be doing that, the ones that create armor. That's what I liked about the Iron Man story. It's what I've liked about characters. Like Blue Beetle to me looks like a character who should be flying in the sky. That's with this, I know that's the Scarab-driven suit, so that's a different storyline there, but I happen to think that costume, that's one you want to throw on, hopefully without the bug in your back. But, that's a good-looking costume and a great example of one that, going back to what you said earlier, it's not something I could make at home, but man, does that look good.
Yeah, I'd actually be okay with the bug, fused to my back if I got the Blue Beetle armor out of it. I think that's an acceptable cost.
Yeah, except you got to be with that bug all the time in your business.
I don't know. He seems kind of the earlier versions of him before he had that whole kind of things got messed up. With where he had to reboot himself, the Scarab was actually kind of funny and was cracking jokes and whatnot with him. So I think he'd actually be a pretty cool partner in crime kind of sidekick to have.
I'm just gonna keep going. I like with Vulko and Below the Sea, we see that the reasons why Aquaman's kind of holding back on using Geoforce as a weapon. He's talking to Mira about it, and I like that her as a confidant is keeping him well-rounded. It's again a great example of a relationship where, this is why this whole debate over whether characters should be married or with a significant other or something like that. I don't want to see every character with it, but this is an interesting storytelling where you see the strength that Aquaman has because he's with her. So I'm looking forward to reading in his series and seeing the two of them together. And what she brings to the table, like we see in this story, keeps him from acting too rashly with Geoforce. We see later why he starts to say, let's kick this baby into high gear. But I like that here she's still giving him a voice of reason and of counsel. Now, when we see Diana, we're seeing her first meeting with Geoforce's sister. And I like this whole concept of the Furies, this honor guard that she has, with Hawkgirl and Vixen and characters that, we're used to seeing separate from her. But with her as the leader that she is, I can understand why these women would side with her, and because she's a compelling, strong leader. We know that about her. And seeing who she was prior to this and what led her to war, I could see there being sympathizers, people who just say, hey, wait a minute, this is somebody who I do want to stand behind and follow through on it. And this is really a good... this is the story that I wanted to see when Mira pops out of the water. Because I had my suspicions that was Mira's helm. I'm not saying that was anything, a big leap or anything. But I wanted to see how that actually came about. Because we were wondering, was this something that Diana did herself, or was it something that was done by the conspirators who are working behind the scenes to manipulate this? And it's a little bit of A and a little bit of B, but ultimately it was Diana who did the killing blow.
Yeah, that was one of those, it seemed like a good idea at the time, Mira going after Diana. And you know what? Probably right up until the point when Diana's taking her head, she's thinking, hey, I can do this. And you just got to sit back and say, that was not a good plan. That was just not well thought out. There's a time to go on the offensive, there's a time to actually unleash, and there's a time to sit and plan, and she did not plan well enough.
No, exactly. But it is funny, again, how it was an unnecessary death. And if Diana really knew the truth, Mira would have never been injured. Much less killed.
Well, if this was our Diana, she wouldn't have killed her. We've seen her deal with hostile threats without going to full violence. The talking gorillas. When she realized they were being manipulated, what did she do? She showed the princess. She showed the sense of honor, and she didn't kill them. She didn't throw down. She's like, you've been deceived. Let me show you the truth.
She hugged it out with Max Lord.
Yeah.
Look at you. Yeah.
It took me half a second to realize what name you said.
But that's another example of showing, though, in our Diana, that she was driven to that point. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was a good choice, though. This was a mistake here. Max Lord, when she did it at the time, depending on where you stand and how you look at that philosophically, that you could consider that a mistake. You might not consider that a mistake because of why she did it in sacrifice. So it's always an interesting debate when we see a hero, anybody we look up to as a hero, kill. Was this the right thing to do? Obviously, in this case, even more so than Max Lord, there's no justification for what she did here.
Well, the only justification is self-defense. Mira was trying to kill her, so
right.
You do have some justification there. Now, maybe Diana could have talked her way out of this. Maybe Diana, if she had been fully knowledgeable on everything going on, maybe she could have reasoned with her. But to be honest, I don't think Mira was going to hold back. Diana could have started the whole, hey, let's talk this out. And Mira would be like, no, I'm going to kill you. So those two reached the point of no return. And we see at the end of Aquaman's issue where we got the confrontation going to be between Diana versus Aquaman, and that's going to be the point that I'm curious is, will there be any discussion? Will there be any rationale between these two, or will this be a full-on battle? Part of me has been saying all along we're going to get the full Justice League together, and that's what's going to break the cycle. There's another part in my mind that thinks these two are going to kill each other. And that's going to be the end of the Atlantean-Themyscirian War. It's going to be the death of the king and death of the queen, and the parties that are, in the background are going to be the ones to step up and say, hey, they're no longer in charge. Let's do a peace accord now. And we could see something even worse that happens because of the death of these two.
Can we talk a little Wonder Woman, if you don't mind?
Oh, sure.
Since we already started going there, it's 613 was the issue that just came out, and this is the second last issue of this Odyssey storyline that's been going on. And it's really an important issue because we find out that what's been going on, there's this villain called Nemesis who has been trying to steal the power and essence of Wonder Woman for her own purposes, to become like a goddess, so to speak, using that power for that purpose. And we found out that what's really been going on with Diana all along was it's a piece of her essence that escaped that. And if it wasn't for that piece of essence, this Nemesis would have won. But it was a part of Diana that was fighting to hold on or something like that. At least it seems that way. And I really liked how we saw this battle. It was her battling her former self or what was left of herself to, for dominance, for the ability to overcome. And it was one of those cool issues where seeing what happened between the two, seeing her, it was really fighting against overwhelming odds because she was fighting her full power. And seeing her continue on and carry on and fight on through until she finally accepts who she is and what that means. That moment was so fantastic when like the essence joined together and we got to see her be our Diana again in that new outfit. That totally, like, I already started liking the new outfit, but when you see and that it's our Wonder Woman, and she has that moment where she's standing there and she goes, "Let's be Wonder Woman again." And you see that Nemesis screaming in the background, her dropping the sword off to the side. I was like, oh, yes. That was just such a great page to see her there in that outfit. And she's even carrying herself a little differently than we've seen her in the series. Great art piece at that moment to see that kind of merging of the Wonder Woman we've been following with the part of herself that she has been seeing echoes of and ghosts of all along. Seeing that those clues were there for a reason, why weren't they connecting further with her? Why were they only things that she was recognizing as opposed to making her full memory come back? Now we know, because the person we've been following all along hasn't been the full Wonder Woman. It's been a echo, a little piece of her essence. That was cool. That was something that I found that was very interesting in this issue.
Yeah, I liked when she had that final confrontation. Again, we were just talking about the Diana that we know, not just dealing with stuff physically. This Diana wasn't as strong as the entity, physically as strong as her enemy, yet she was able to beat her, because of her strength of her heart, the strength of her person, the woman, that hope and love, that compassion that is Wonder Woman, that makes her such a cool character. That's what beat the physical monster. And that's what brought them together. You can't have just a physical Diana, a physical Wonder Woman, or just a compassionate Diana. You have to have the two together. It's the merging. That's what makes her such a great hero. Is the fact that she is the warrior, but she is the diplomat. She is, Wonder Woman, just this really cool butt-kicking superhero, but she's also the person who just has that never-ending, just that, the power of just perfect and complete and full love and just compassion, and hope and just all those wonderful traits that you want in a hero. She has it in spades. And you have that mixed in with the powerhouse, and that is the stuff that makes her so cool. And again,
reason's one thing. I think many times we talk about the compassion of Diana, but we forget that there's reason in there as well. Because anybody who's able to know when to throw down the sword, it's not just compassion that does that. It's also a good sense of reason and judgment. And she's a character that's very multifaceted, and it's something that I've grown to appreciate over the years about Diana, and I really loved it here. I think this story, it was funny how I thought this was going to go to like a new quote-unquote Wonder Woman, and and I don't know if this was originally how it was intended to go, but I really like how it's wrapping up with us seeing her merge and become Diana again, and to have all those pieces. I'd be curious to see, she's got to obviously have the memories of what she's been through in the last year, but what does that mean? It's too bad we can't follow her after this.
Yeah, I want to see, what would have happened to this Diana. What would have happened to the Amazons? Is this all, a universe created from the Division? So does that mean all the death and destruction of the Amazons that happened can be undone? Or what's that whole process going to be like? And that's why I'm wondering, the new 52 going forward, is there going to be this Diana, pieces of this Diana, or is it going to be something different? And that's the big question for me on Diana right now. Seeing where this character's gone through, I hope there is still a connection going forward, because this is a character who can learn from this experience and grow from it.
Yeah, I'm guessing, well, I know they're not doing an origin, because that was brought up at San Diego.
Yeah.
Because, their basic attitude is, and I actually appreciate that. The origin's been told. Let's just go on and tell some good Wonder Woman stories. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to go out of their way to connect. I'm anxious to see the final battle. This one that's called The Return. I'm guessing that this will show us. I'm guessing the original plan was to show that it was magic. that caused all this, and that's why the other heroes were affected. And I'm guessing her return would then negate that magic. But I don't know that it would negate necessarily the deaths. It would, I think, make people aware of who she was and actually seeing what happened to her.
Here's my thought behind it was these characters that we saw that were all part of her universe, they were affected by the magic. So I think if she can negate the full-on original spell, it would go back to that point at the beginning. So I think it would bring back the dead. It would restore what was before to what it is now. And I don't know if they would have memory of the existence, but if these characters, if she was created by a splitting of the power and these other characters were created off of that magic, then maybe these were splittings of the other characters as well. Maybe they never actually went through the death. They were actually trapped in that magic world where Diana had her confrontation. So maybe they didn't actually physically die. It was their splitted essence of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. They were going to find out in the story what's happening with them. It's a series that's wrapping up really well. I'm glad this is something I'm going to commend DC on. I like that they're wrapping up, and it's working out in various different ways, all of these storylines in time for the 52. So we aren't getting, ripped out of storylines we've been enjoying before. There's actually a couple books I want to talk about briefly before we wrap up the show today. If at some point in time we could talk about how Doom Patrol ended, an example, something like that. I'm glad that we're getting endings to these books versus just kind of the book's canceled, we're starting something new.
You know what book I'm really happy with the ending with, and let's take a minute or so to talk about it.
Sure.
Titans. With me, just Titans, when they there was always just kind of a slow start, chugga, then they switched around the style of it by going with Deathstroke and his Titans, and just as it's been slowly building, we're coming to this great ending with this whole project behind Deathstroke has been about one thing: restoring Jericho and fixing and healing Jericho. And all these different missions he's had the others on has been about getting the parts needed to create this great super device, this godlike device that restored Jericho, could bring back the dead, could fix probably Black Adam, everything that everybody's hearts desire. All these promises that Deathstroke said, right there's your device. And each of the characters now have this moral question: do you go with it or do you stop it? And I loved seeing these characters who each have a reason to want this device, to use this device, make the mental decision, make the ethical decision. Will I tolerate this? Will I allow this? And it was just something that just had me going, really just, kind of, got me excited and thrilled about this title. And then I remembered, oh yeah, it's ending. I'm like, dang it, because this is a cool story. And I like seeing glimpses of Roy coming back. There is that person who's fighting, once again, he's fighting the addiction. He's fighting just this piece of garbage that he's become, going, you know what? I may be a piece of garbage, but this is wrong. Yes, it could bring back my daughter. Yes, it probably could fix my arm, but this is wrong. Ethically, this is wrong, and we can't play God. And I like seeing him stand up to, with honestly, Osiris is going to definitely do it, Cheshire, she's going to want to jump on this because this is a chance for her. There's just these characters who are like, this is my golden ticket. This is everything. This is my heart's desired. And I love seeing that, just, culminating. And I'm really looking forward to the final issue to see where this plays out.
Jericho, to me, Jericho over the years has been one of those characters. I was never a big fan of Jericho becoming a villain. I grew up with Teen Titans. I loved seeing New Teen Titans with him on the team, and so he's a hero. And to see him brought back now with his reason back, and looking at this whole situation and going, oh my gosh, look what all's been done. What have you done to me? And him saying this is all my fault. And this is great. This discussion, the interplay between the two of them. Because Deathstroke can understand this. I thought you'd be happy. I agreed to these terms in order to give you your life back. I tried to do the right thing here. For noble purposes. Which makes me responsible for everything you've done. Think about that, Father. The crimes, the betrayals, murders. How am I supposed to live with that? And it is, do the ends justify the means? Not always. So he's like, I'm not going anywhere, neither are you. We have to pay for all the things we've done in this life farther, starting with Methuselah's destruction, then ours. So he's willing to destroy themselves, the group, the Titans. Ooh, it's such a... when he's talking about death and destruction, I'm assuming that he means that he and his father will be no more after this. Not only the team, metaphorically, but I also think physically, the two of them, he's saying, hey, we got to be out of the game because look at what we're doing here, And that becomes a horrible issue. Can you imagine being brought back to find out all of this stuff was done in your name in order to bring you back? How do you deal with that responsibility? You see all the time after effects of people when somebody pulls a gun to defend somebody and shoots somebody or something like that. You know what I mean? That's something that scars you for life. You took a life. Even though it was for the noble reasons, the right reasons, things like that. That's an emotional thing for many people that will scar them and for life and change them. In this case, look at everything that's happened in this Titan series. Brian Choi died, multiple villains, heroes, throughout the whole series, lots of people died, lots of people were hurt, all for the purpose of bringing him back.
Yeah. And I love it when villains are written correctly.
Yeah.
And when villains, because Deathstroke is a pure villain, but there's always been that code of conduct, there's always been that code of family. And you see here, he's willing to kill innocent people, he's willing to do whatever it takes for his end goal. And it's on one hand you say, well, there is some nobility to it, there is something good about the fact that he wants his son to be well and better and normal again, but what's the price of it? That's the question. There's no hero on this planet who would want him to go through everything he's done to save them. And I love seeing Jericho respond to it. And in the middle of this, we also have Dr. Impossible and Mad Hatter. They help build this device, but they recognize that right as this fight's going down, this is a bad place to be right now. We need to think of ourselves and get the heck out of here. And I love the fact that they're willing to just walk away from this because their lives to them are more important than this, superhuman device. They were paid to do what they were contracted to do something. They completed the contract, got paid, and now they're getting out of there. They're not going to take it to a greedy level above what you would think a villain would do because it's not a smart play. And these are two intelligent villains, so they're going to play the smart play. And I think that is kind of a cool thing. And so even a little side panel, a couple panels just showing them saying, I'm out of here. But I like that as well. That was just stuff throughout this thing. As it's going down, you have these great characterizations. And that's why I really dig this issue.
Yeah, it is. And I agree with you on that series having a slow build. And once you got the framework in place, it became a very interesting book as it's been going along. Eric Wallace is writing Mr. Terrific, I believe, after this. And I have a lot of hope for that series now because of this, because I do think this is a series that has ended very well. And he didn't ignore anything that he did before and laid out. I think it's a series that required some patience to see what he was really trying to pull off here. And it's hard because I was very uncomfortable with Roy Harper being a villain again. Mm-hmm. I don't think you ever could drastically consider him a villain, but boy, going the junkie route and, losing the arm and everything that this poor guy went through, you wanted to see him have the support pieces in place where he could work past it, but it's ending really strong.
Well, see, with me, I kind of did think Roy had crossed over and had become a villain. And it was the scene in the prison where...
No. Hold on, hang on. I'm talking about prior to the events with Leon. I don't think we've ever seen him as a villain before. In this, he clearly did cross over to being a villain. What I'm saying is, this is new territory. You're taking a character that was Speedy, the original sidekick of Green Arrow is what I'm saying. Yes, he became a drug addict and stuff like that, but I never considered him a villain. I considered him somebody who got off of the path. Now, going off of what you were just saying there, amen, I agree with you. He did cross a line and he did become a villain in the prison break. We saw that when he had that confrontation with Ali. He had a choice there, and Ali was trying to stop him from making the wrong choice, and Roy basically would hear nothing of it. So no, you and I are totally in sync. So I didn't mean to cut you off there. I didn't want you to think that I was saying he wasn't a villain now. I do agree he crossed that line. Can you get redemption?
Oh yeah, every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. It's but what is the price of redemption? Mm-hmm. And that's the key. For some people, it's, hey, I'm sorry, no problem, okay, everything's cool. There's some stuff that you want redemption, you got to earn it, and you're earning it with blood, sweat, and tears, and you're earning it through doing time in prison. You're earning it through hard, trials and tribulations that you got to go through. He's got a long way to go to earn it. He's taking the first steps right now, in saying, no, I'm not going to let you guys use this. I'm going to die defending this and trying to stop you. I'm laying my life on the line. And in a way, maybe if he were to die, stopping them, if he were to sacrifice his life to save, basically the world pretty much, because if this device gets in the wrong hands, then we're talking apocalypse on epic proportion. But, that's a debate, that I would have after the fact and seeing what he did, to actually what kind of sacrifices. But to be honest, I think he's going to have a path beyond this where he's going to need to travel to show his redemption, to show that he isn't the same piece of garbage that he was, that he has learned, and he's trying to, go back to being the hero that we all know. And it can happen, but as I said, it's going to take some time, and it's going to, take a lot of effort on his part. And, and that's a story I personally would like to see. I would like to see the redemption of Red Arrow, or the redemption of Arsenal, or redemption of Roy as a person, because he's got damages, that he's got to clean up, without the mask on.
I want redemption for Speedy. Sorry. No, I'm with you. It is. That's. I was just going to say that one of my regrets with this series and the fact that there's going to be the new 52 launching is that we're not going to see that a chance to see that explored, or at least I think. I'm assuming that. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, he's got his series.
But I'm guessing that series is going to be. Well, I don't know. Is it going to be a fresh launch? What's Arsenal's position going to be in? I guess maybe this is plugging him into a position where he could be in that series, because this could be about wrapping up his status quo with the Titans, but still putting in a position where he's been to some dark places and needs to come back. I don't know. I'm very interested in that series, Red Hood and. What is it, Red Hood and the...
Outsiders?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that one.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
Hey, this is Jack, a recent listener. I really enjoyed your guys' podcast. It's been awesome. And really enjoyed the work. You guys keep it up. And the only complaint I really had comic-wise was... Tony Daniels' Batman work up until a point, and I quit reading Detective, Batman Inc., and Batman because of the fact they didn't feel like the Batman to me, so I basically boycotted those books. What I've picked up of Batman and Robin post Morrison has been awesome, and I'm going to be getting Action Comics, Batman, and Wonder Woman. As the 3 relaunch titles in September. Thanks very much, you guys, for a great show. Bye.
See, that's interesting. I really do like Tony Daniel on Batman. So, and I don't want to overshadow that by the fact that, I'm so detective happy. But I do think he's been writing. Now, I will say this. I can see where he would say it doesn't feel like Batman to him, in the sense that with Dick Grayson being Batman, that has changed the tone, but I think appropriately, of the book. But see, I still think it feels like Batman. It's just real clear that there's somebody else under the cowl.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it's for me, the whole difference, and I wanted it personalized, and I always liked the fact when they went through those little extra details to make sure we knew that was Dick Grayson there. When, that whole sequence when him and Alfred were tweaking the costume to fit his more acrobatic fighting style and expanding the eye slits a little bit, giving him a little bit more peripheral vision and giving him more maneuverability and a lighter material, and just those little tweaks that they made. That was the kind of stuff that I really liked and I really enjoyed seeing and reading. So it's our personal tastes, and we all have what we want out of the book.
Now, he mentioned Batman Inc. as being one of the books that he dropped because it didn't feel like Batman to him. Now, I wonder if it's the issue is that Bruce is a little bit more accessible now than he was prior to his death. So I wonder if that's the case. Do you feel like Bruce's storytelling as Batman has changed? See, it's funny. I will say this about Finch's book when he was writing Batman in that book. And Morrison's book as well, he does feel like Bruce still. I mean, it's the same character in there. Now, granted, the M.O. in Batman Inc. is very different than when you're doing, like, what Morrison was doing when he was writing Batman. Because this is a Batman seeking out all of these other Batmen to bring them together to go against a big bad. Which I'm curious to see how that's going to wrap up. Who is this big enemy that he's been preparing for all along? And why? Why was it so necessary to go worldwide and collect all of these people together to prepare for that? So I want to see what is the end game there. What was it leading to? So I'm anxious to see because there was a big story being told there. And Morrison did reference that this is a story that he's been building to in all the years that he's been writing. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you feel like Bruce feels different than he has in the past to you?
Well, I think he feels different, but it's one of those justifiable differences. I like the fact that he had this epic experience where he was back through time, traveling through time, and even before that, when 52 happened, where he went on that personal journey and just started recognizing and realizing, what he was doing that, changed, that part of him that needed the change. After Final Crisis, after Infinite Crisis, just everything that's happened to him, I would expect that Batman would be a little bit different, but his core of who Bruce is still the same. He still is the greatest detective. He still is the guy who has the plan, who prepares for every possible contingency that you can imagine, and some that a normal person couldn't imagine. And not only has he thought about it, he's prepared his counteragent, and he's trained for it, so he's ready for when it does strike. Just that psychotic level of dedication and devotion that Batman has to the mission has not changed, and that's the thing that I always hold on to and I always enjoy reading.
Now, I'd be curious to see if Jack is going to pick up, because he mentioned he's liking Batman and Robin, so I'm curious to see if he's going to pick up in September the other titles with Bruce coming back to them to see what that's like, with these writers working with Bruce now instead of Dick Grayson, the ones that have been. So, I don't know. It's funny, he mentioned the Black Mask storyline for Tony Daniel. I think that's the one that he was referencing in there. And I agree that was my favorite Tony Daniel story by far. I thought that was, just incredible. But I've liked Tony Daniel's writing since then. But that storyline, I think, I was so following that mystery. But that's like comparing, I really enjoyed R.I.P. for Batman, and I think that was one of the better Morrison stories. That doesn't mean that I didn't like Morrison's other work. So I know it's interesting. And like you said, Jim, we've all got different tastes and different preferences. So I love phone calls like this because, I'm always kind of like, wow, really? I'm not getting that experience. But, there's other people that might be connecting with what Jack's saying and saying, no, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm just curious to see if people who've been feeling that way are going to try out the new books in September when they relaunch to see how these creators handle Bruce.
Yeah, please call back again. Let us know if you picked up and what you're reading, what you're liking, September, what it feels for you. What does the universe feel? What's this like for you? Is this something, are you behind this? Are you, where are you at? This is, I think, going to be the interesting part about this whole, redo. It's our reaction as the readers, as the fans of DC Comics, what we're thinking, why we're thinking it. It's easy to say, oh, I don't like that. But the why don't you like it? Or I like that. Well, why? It's the why, the whatnot, if you will, behind your feelings. That's what I'm looking forward to. That's the discussions I'm looking.
What I'm also,
really
Jim. You know what I'm more interested in? Because we always say that, and then we say we want to hear what you're liking. And I think I'm more interested in hearing if you didn't like something, what did you fill that gap with? And did that? Are you liking that book? because a lot of times we don't get that part of it. Like, like as Jack mentioned, and I think Jack made a post on Facebook, and I apologize if it's not the same one, but I'm very curious to see what people, like, if you dropped this certain amount of titles, did you pick up something else, and is it filling that gap? Is it, are you enjoying that? Because I think sometimes you just, if writers attempt to appeal to every type of fan of a certain character. And sometimes they're successful in picking up new readers with the things that they're doing. And sometimes there's going to be readers who just, aren't like Jack. In this case, Jack isn't finding what he's looking for there. So there's an opportunity then for Jack to try out some other books. And I'm sure Jack's doing that. So I'd like to know, like you said, I'd like to know, what are you trying? And, what's been really striking your fancy out of that? That's cool. That's what I like about these phone calls, too. Not just like, you're right, Jim. We want to know, why aren't you liking them? And Jack addressed some of that. But I also want to know, what are you reading now? And is it cool?
Hey, guys. It's Chad Burdett, a known fanboy, back again with my almost a month behind comic book comments. I think this time my comment is on Superman 712. It's the crypto story. First off, I think since it was another fill-in issue between the Superman Walks Across America arc, and it was just another break in the story. But really what stuck out at me this time was the fact that there were some pretty glaring art mistakes, at least in my opinion. If you look on the page before the full-page FlashPoint ad, you'll see that Superboy and Nightwing are getting ready to leave and head out during Infinite Crisis. And as you can see, the artist got Nightwing's costume wrong, and that continues onto the next page, which looks like it has this even older one from around the Nightfall era, where it has the wings part under the arms. And then after the Subway mini comic, which I will reserve my comments for because I just find those to be pretty annoying. When we get back to the story, you look and Nightwing is back into his correct uniform, and I just find that that's a glaring art mistake that should have been caught. And again, it's stuff like this, as I've mentioned before, that really takes me out of the story. And I really don't like to, harp on stuff, but I just think that DC should be more careful when they approve the story, that they need to make sure that, the continuity of whether it be costumes, storylines, or anything is just consistent with what they're trying to show in flashback. I guess my other thing would be just comments on the FlashPoint series. I've read all the first issues of the minis and up to FlashPoint 2. Still waiting on my order with the second books, but I'm really enjoying the series, which is kind of surprising. It surprises me. When I went into FlashPoint, I was kind of worried that it was just going to be another, mega event, and I was, going to be disappointed overall. But I'm really enjoying the stories. I like how they kind of drop you into the stories midway, and as you go through, you're getting the background and the events that led up to the story they're trying to tell. I think it's also neat how you can see different characters, and they also have different Easter eggs for those of us that have been reading comics for a while. I think my favorite one-shot was the Grodd of War, and to see that who Grodd actually kills, who is leading the human rebellion against him. I don't know if I should spoil it or not, but I guess, like I said, I'm really enjoying it and hope that they can continue the interest that they've piqued in me with Flashpoint. I would say overall the miniseries that has been my least favorite would have to be The Outsider. And I don't know, it just seems that James Robinson lately, or more recently, hasn't been writing the way that he did when he was writing Starman back in the days, but I guess I can only be so picky. Anyway, look forward to hearing any comments you may have, and I guess I will I'm going to keep listening. I do have one more comment. It's about Green Lantern. I did see the movie. Haven't listened to your review yet, but I was talking to two of my coworkers who work in these, were people who have are not comic book people, are female, and they went to see the Green Lantern movie together, and both came out with different views on it. One really liked it. She felt that she was given enough storyline and that it moved well for her, and the other one felt that it was too heavy on. There were story holes, and that there was just not enough character development of Hal Jordan and stuff like that. So it was just kind of interesting to hear their take on the movie from a non-comic book reader point of view. Anyway, I guess I'll get off now and talk to you guys later.
Jim, I want to talk about the Green Lantern movie thing for a second before we jump into the just talking about the comics and stuff that he was talking about. But it was funny. My wife and we saw Captain America on Friday. She's not a comic fan. She's not a comic reader. She lives with me. I'm the biggest deterrent in the world. She's surrounded by this stuff all the time. If I was living with me, I wouldn't read comics. So, it's an unhealthy environment to facilitate a comic fan. Because I'm reading comics all the time. I'm talking about comics all the time. Imagine if she was reading them too. I would never shut up about them. So it's unfortunately for her, I think I'm really ruining the potential for a comic experience for her. In fairness, she listens to a lot of my ramblings. But we went to go see Green Lantern together, and she loved it, really liked it. And I went to Captain America. I loved Green Lantern. We talked about it on the show, and I stand behind everything I said on the show. But out of the two movies, I actually liked Captain America a little better out of the two. And that's not a knock on Green Lantern. It's more of a compliment to how good Captain America was. I really enjoyed that film. And when we were driving home, I told my wife, I said, which film did you like better? And she said, no, for me it was Green Lantern. She said, I liked Ryan Reynolds. I liked the characters. I liked the love story. So it's funny how Chad's right. There's different reactions from Green Lantern. I'm glad to hear more people speaking up saying they enjoyed it. To differing varying levels. I think it's, different experiences depending on different people on it. And if you didn't see the movie and you're listening to this, please go see it because Green Lantern was a great movie. I think it was a summer of good superhero movies. I really liked every one of them that I've seen. I thought that they've all been very well done to differing degrees, but I thought it was a great summer for films.
I had a lot of non-comic book people who saw Green Lantern and enjoyed it. And it was one of those things where they were seeing online, they were seeing a lot of the comic book fans putting it down and not liking it, and they were hesitant. And then when they talked to me about it, I told them that I enjoyed it. I told them some of the cool stuff that I liked about the movie, and and they went and saw it. And the next day, I'm like, oh man, that was a good movie. So it's one of those things where I don't know. I think you got to go into the movie just with this open mind that this is the story you're going to be told, not expecting, hey, are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Are they going to do this? And just sit back and enjoy the movie. Look at it for what it is, and I think you will enjoy it.
Well, I think it goes with what what we were saying with Jack earlier, though. I think you got to walk in and make your own judgment. I think, is Green Lantern a movie for everybody? Well, no movie's for everybody. It's some of my favorite movies. Other people didn't like at all. So what does that say? I'll read reviews of movies that I thought were absolutely tremendous that, the reviewer trashes, and I don't think it's because they're lying. I think it's just not to their taste. So, what does that mean? They're invalid? No. Does that mean I am? No. You enjoy what you enjoy and, move along. So now he was talking about this crypto story. It's funny. I noticed the costume change for Nightwing too, but I thought it was done deliberate for storytelling purposes because it was during the black and white bits, and I thought it was because it was from Crypto's memory, and Crypto's memory was just a little off because it's a dog.
yeah, it's and I'm trying to remember back in that scene, and I thought Dick had some type of wings that he was actually flying, and he wasn't flying in a bat jet.
I have to go look back at Infinite Crisis and see.
I could have swore there was a part where he actually had the older costume, not even the older costume, just like an older attachment where he actually had some wings that he was using to fly.
Well, in fairness, see, this is one of the things that we probably should preface this with. This was a lost story that was done by Kurt Busiek and Rick Leonardi, and I don't know if it was completely finished or whatever. It was a crypto story that was never released, so I don't know when certain pages were done, when others weren't. I don't know if they went back, if Rick Leonardi went back and finished pages that weren't done before. This was a story that I always wanted to see done, and finished. Because remember this, we heard about this crypto issue, and it just never ended up being released. So I'm glad that, really, if we didn't see it now, we probably never see it. Because we're going to a new continuity. So I was glad that they did a crypto story here, did release this issue. But I can't help but wonder if that was I guess I thought it was for storytelling reasons, because it's the black and white sequence where, and he's right, here what ends up happening, Jim, it's in that sequence where he's teamed up with Nightwing, I think, I think it's to head in that direction. And then in the next couple pages, when they're in full color, Nightwing is in his newer outfit. So I don't know if that was done on purpose or not, because it did seem to me like the black and white sequences were supposed to be direct from Krypto's memory. So I guess I thought it was the dog's memory that was driving that versus it being an art error. But that could be me mistaken. So it didn't. I guess for me, it didn't take me out of the story. I thought it was a cool storytelling element. Yeah. They're showing us in Krypto's head, and he's seeing things, like all of us have hazy memories and stuff like that. He's having that kind of issue. But I really found the story to be a very moving story about loss, because this was a point in time where Superman was not on Earth. Yeah. And he had built this strong relationship with Superboy, and he was dead. So we got to see, how did Krypto deal with that, losing his master and being lonely. And I thought it was a very moving look at all of these events from his perspective, because he was injured during that sequence of events, during the fight with Superboy Prime. And I thought it was a cute little side story in there. I don't know. Did you like that issue? I don't know where you were at on that one.
Oh yeah, I definitely liked it. I thought it was a nice little kind of story, and in a way, there was a little bit of sadness to it, where Krypto's waiting for them to come back, and it's Krypto's a character that very easily could get lost in the shuffle, and I hope he's still around, because we're getting we had some really great Krypto moments, some great hero moments, that it's the man and his dog, and just it's kind of a easy tug at the heartstrings when you see them together, and you see just that never-ending loyalty, and just that that's that devotion that only this dog would have. And so I thought this was a cool story. I enjoyed seeing it, and I didn't have an issue with any of the art changes, and to be honest with you, I was so caught up in the moment of Krypto that I can't even say that I really said, "Oh wow, look at that! That's different." I didn't really even see that. I saw more of just this dog's reaction, and once again, more stories behind just the mystery and the enigma that is Krypto.
Now I did see it, so I won't dispute him on that. But I thought it was funny. We have three different experiences here. Yeah. Chad saw it, and that's legit. He saw it, and it took him out of the storytelling. You can't argue with that. That's what happened to him. I saw it and thought it was done on purpose for storytelling reasons. You didn't even notice it. Or, you noticed it and thought that he had the wing attachment that was on there, which, I'd have to go back and look at Infinite Crisis to say whether or not there was a wing attachment. But it looked to me like the old costume from Titan, so I get what he's saying. But, I thought that was done deliberately to be Krypto's memory, so I don't know. It's kind of interesting. He talked about FlashPoint and how he's enjoying that, and he was surprised that he was enjoying the series as much as he was, and the tie-ins. But then mentioned The Outsider and James Robinson's writing, which I don't know. See, I've heard that from a few people, and I don't get that experience with it, because I like Justice League of America quite a bit. That's actually one of those things too, where I was always hoping that we would get the big Magnificent Seven, whatever Justice League book that people were asking for, in addition to the book that we were getting with kind of the new blood in the Justice League, because I liked what James Robinson was doing with that. And I'm sad that we're not going to get to see the direction that he was going in, because he had multiple years of storyline built up.
He had plans, and it's not going to happen now.
And I like the way his storyline had built from not ignoring where the team had gone turmoil-wise and gradually building themselves up to the team that we see now that feels like the Justice League. So, and that's a book that we got to keep in mind. That's a book that's not being canceled due to sale numbers. It's, they're looking line wide at revamping things to try to increase sales numbers across the board to books like Superman and obviously try to boost numbers to Justice League and stuff like that, but also to the entire line except for your absolute top tier books like Batman and Green Lantern. So I don't know. It's very interesting to see how this is changing. But I quite enjoyed his Justice League run. What about the Outsider? It's an interesting problem for that character. I am enjoying the series. I don't know the character, so I have a different reaction to that than I have to Aquaman and Wonder Woman, for example, and Superman, Project Superman, because those are titles, for example, in Deathstroke, because they're focusing on characters that I'm familiar with. I know, but I'm enjoying the Outsider. It's a different sort of experience because I don't know the character. He's brand new, so I'm trying to get a vibe on him and a feel for him. It's actually a lot like Secret Seven. Secret Seven with Peter Milligan, there's a lot of characters in there I'm not familiar with. Some of them I am, but I think I'm in the Outsider. I'm in that same place with them. These are new characters. It fits Canterbury Cricket too, I think, to a certain extent. These are books that I'm enjoying. I don't know the characters, so it's in that place. But where are you at?
Well, the Outsider's a bit of a jerk, and and the thing is, because I know he's supposed to be a jerk, and it's not like an accidental. It's the intention of the writer is for you not to like him, and you're supposed to have these resentments and the negative feelings towards him. So it's, again, I'm like, well, he's doing exactly what he wanted. He's actually getting an emotional response from me, and for a story to get an emotional response tells me it's good writing and it's a good story. Now, he's not my favorite character out of Flashpoint because I don't like him. So if I can't say you can't say somebody's your favorite if you're sitting there saying, I really would like to see someone knock that smug grin off his face. I want to see someone hurt him. And just because, and it's because the character is getting that reaction. He is getting that response out of me. And some of the usages of him, the usage of the terrifics in there, and just all the different things that he's gone through, and just how expendable his own people are, is just like, this is a great villain story. A villain who maybe is pretending that he's not a villain, but he really doesn't care what you think about him because he's a smug jerk. And they don't care what people think. It's just, for him, it's about the bottom line. For him, it's about his way or his way. There's no other options. And again, that's, as time would develop, and I don't know, you sit there and we talk about, I'd like to see Elseworld stories, a continuation of Flashpoint. I don't know if I want to see that from him just because I don't like him, but he is a fascinating story, and if they were to do something, I would pick it up because, as I said, I'm getting a reaction from him, and I want to see it happen, and I want to see him, get his just desserts. So I probably would pick up another series just to see if that would happen. And it's a bizarre relationship, and I admit that, but so it's.
He said he only read the first issues though, and I've got to say, issue 2 of The Outsider really sold me on that miniseries.
Yeah.
A lot more, because there's a lot of reveals in that. The battle with Black Adam. Things like happened with ISIS. The reveal of who Blackout is, and I'm not going to spoil that for right now because we're not going into a heavy discussion about this book, and we'll probably talk about it further as the book goes on. But I really, there was a lot more going on in issue 2, but none of that would have mattered if you didn't know what you knew in issue 1, knowing that this guy really isn't a hero. He's a world power, and Cyborg called on him because he doesn't have a Justice League to pull from, so he's got to pull from all the other corners of the world, all of these world powers together with these tentative issues to try and say, hey, let's all work together and band together because we have to stop what Aquaman and Wonder Woman are doing before it's too late for all of us. So it's a relationship of convenience, not necessarily of trust and friendship in a very dark world. So I actually kind of like that, he's recruiting this character who like, and Citizen Cold. Both of these are gray area characters. They're not really heroes. They're more villains.
Yeah, there is no gray in Citizen Cold. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, no, he's totally. But I mean, I think it's pretty clear on this guy that there's not so much gray either. These aren't heroes; they're villains.
Yeah.
The Outsider, I don't consider him a hero.
No, not at all. He's another. Yeah, I'll say there's no gray area there for me on him. He may do something good if it suits him. If it's for his good, if it's for his greater good. But in the end, he's going to look out for number one. It's, if he's in the middle of a firefight and it looks like he may, take some damage or something may go wrong for him, he'll double cross the team and cut a side deal, and to protect his own interests, to protect his own skin. So he's flat out full on, bad guy. But he would work with the heroes, and if it looks like they would succeed. Whereas I think Citizen Cold would come up with a reason not show up to the fight because of the risk.
Now, just to clarify something, I don't like one of the things that I like about both of these characters is the fact that there's a gray area. When I said gray area, there's a gray area for the world at large. They don't necessarily, everyone doesn't know like they're villains. Some people do, some people don't. Some people are unsure about them. There's like a 3-tiered step with these guys. Some people love them, some people hate them, and some people wind up in the middle not knowing how to feel about them. That's where they're more of a gray area than, and I think in the DC universe, it's a lot more cut and dry with a lot of characters. But in these guys' cases, I think what makes them so interesting is the world at large, because there aren't the heroes that we're used to. As many of them, the labels aren't as distinct, which I find fascinating about this. So I don't know. I'm finding that book pretty interesting.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment.
Sure. The
Subway cartoon comic in there.
Yeah,
I'm liking these. I'm actually enjoying this, and when it first hit, I was like, "What's this?" And then it kept going on. It wasn't just a single page. I like the fact that they went all in on this. This wasn't just a quick little blip. They're in a way telling a full story, and I enjoyed this. I gotta say, this is the kind of ad I would want, and I was really glad that it was Subway because I enjoy their subs. So this is one of those things where people may expect me to dislike it because of past problems I've had with, this. For me, this was good usage of the source material as well as a good advertising tool to put it in the comic.
Well, it's a comic.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
That's why
it gets redundant, in the sense that you're seeing the same two comics over and over again, or same couple comics, I should say, over and over again. I thought they were fun. They remind me of the old Twinkie ads. I loved those old Twinkie ads. This was just more of an extended version of the old Twinkie ads. And, it's not like, reading Hush or Watchmen or Dark Knight Returns or something like that. For me, it's more just mild passing entertainment. There's times where it gets annoying having to pass through those extra pages. But the truth of the matter is, I read them, which, when you've got an ad like that, did you bother reading them? I did. And you're right, they were enjoyable. So I had a positive experience based on a Subway ad, and you move along. So I mean, I agree with you. They were entertaining. So we were certainly don't shy away from ads that are how many 3D glasses do I have from other ads in the past. But no, this was I thought this was a decent ad. It was fun, for what it was.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Greg Shanky. Will Kemper on the forums when I post. About a 90-mile drive on the way home from work. And I just have a few things to say about the new DCU now that I've had time to think about it and after San Diego and everything. One of the things that's really intriguing to me is that at one point it looked like they were going to not bend over for the fans, so to speak. And I've always thought that's one of the things that really has hurt comic books overall from the big two. When comic books didn't try to cater their product, comic book companies, they try to cater their product to specifically comic book fans, they were sold better. Yes, I understand it. Now there's such comic book stores, and there used to be newsstands and everything. But when comic books were more available, the stories were more available to almost anyone, they sold better. And some of the things I'm hearing just got me really excited. Francis Manipul was just on the Oh Yeah podcast, and he said that they were told from above that when you're writing a comic, put a lot of stuff into it. The days of decompression are over. There's going to be no big event out of DC for at least 5 years. Fantastic. What comic books should be are less crossover and more internal continuity. You know, Superman has Lois Lane, Jim Wilson, Perry White. What happens to Vicky Vale shouldn't affect what happens to Superman. And I think those are the things that are going to make the new DCU really interesting, if they can stick to that. Shorter stories, less trade-driven stories, more accessible stories. And I'm hoping it works out. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Now, I agree with a lot of what he's saying, except I want to add in there that, like, I like events, which I know that's kind of taboo to say or something like that because people always talk about eventitis and things like that. I kind of like the way they're doing events now, like FlashPoint and stuff like that, where it didn't derail all the other books. Like, you know, we just talked about Detective Comics on this episode, and, you know, that's a storyline that continued on even though Flashpoint's going on. You know, Superman continued on, Wonder Woman, all these other books continued on, except for Booster because it made sense for him to be involved. I'm a big believer, though, that, see, those are events, that's a Flash event that could easily, you know, maybe that would happen in a Flash title. We had Booster Gold, when his book, have multiple events like that where he traveled through time. So I wouldn't mind if there's you know, if there's events that are happening in like 2 or 3 titles or something like that because they're interrelated and it's kind of fun to do that. And the creators have a storytelling reason for doing that. That's fine. I got no issue with that. See, my opinion with comics are, and I agree with a lot of what Greg's saying in the sense that I don't think stories need to be written for the trade length. I think people who buy trades for good storytelling in the trades. They like them bound. They like having multiple issues together. They like to be able to read large segments and large chunks of continuing continuity for characters in a trade format. Let's say that fits for every trade reader, but that's typically what people are expecting when they go into a trade. And they want it to be relatively complete from start to finish in the sense that, you know, the beginning of one storyline. So you could sometimes put 2 or 3 storylines in a trade if they're shorter. So I'm all for all that. I actually agree with him in the sense that this decompression thing, I don't think there should be one type of storytelling in comics. I don't think there are, but I like the idea that the new DC is about more freedom for the creators to tell the stories to the right lengths that the story needs to be told, to put all the, you know, bells and whistles into each issue. I think that's really important because any given issue can be somebody's first. And when they pick up that issue, they should feel like they've gotten an experience in that issue. So I think that is going to be good. I think that that's going to be interesting. I don't think that they should all of a sudden go and say, though, this is the format for everything right now. I think there should be more open nature to tell stories in whatever format fits your title. So, you know, if you're telling a 12-issue story like Scott Snyder's telling in Detective Comics, fantastic. If you're going to tell a one-shot, one single-issue story because that fits a story that you really want to tell about your character with all kinds of big events and things that are happening in that one single issue, then you tell that story. And, you know, that's the way comics should be. And, you know, when you collect that into a trade, you know, you can collect, in Title A, maybe there was a 1-issue story, a 3-issue story, and a 5-issue story, and you collect that into a larger trade. So you collect that in a larger trade, and, you know, that's just the way that one winds up being collected. That's still complete for the trade readers, just that they've gotten 3 stories instead of 1. So I don't know. I think that works. So I agree with him, a lot of what he's saying there. I don't know that, I think events to me, are you worn out on events, Jim?
Not at all.
Okay.
Again, it's got to be the right type of event and the right storytelling event, and just I like, you know, the events that are taking place predominant that are told within the Sinestro Corps War, how it was told within the Green Lantern Corps. I like those, you know, really well, especially just if they're told, you know, I enjoy those more probably than the big overall event that will change everything and it doesn't change everything. So it's, in a way, it's funny because as I'm talking, I'm kind of sounding like I'm burned out on events, but I'm not. You know, I still would, you know, again, with Flashpoints going through, I'm loving this, I'm enjoying this. I'm like, oh, this is cool because this is a really neat story that's being told. And with the relaunch coming up, I'm excited about the change because I want to see what's going to happen. And if they tell me we're going to do this big event with Superman, or we're going to do this big event in this new 52 universe, I probably would say, okay, cool. I'm not going to, but when we get into it, when everything's said and done, that's when I judge the event. So I'm not burnt out of events, but I am. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Here's kind of my take on it. I don't think you should do an event for the sake of doing an event. I think you should do an event because there's a storytelling reason where you're like, we're doing something huge here, and this is a great opportunity for Book A, Book B, Book C to be a part of it because it makes sense. So I do think that there's reasons to do them. I think that they work real well. I mean, I love Blackest Night. I love Flashpoint. These are great events. I don't necessarily think that there has to be one every year, though. I think it's, if a creator comes up with a great idea and it turns out to be an event, and there's a lot of writers who want to jump on board and be a part of that, I think it should be flexible to say, hey, I'm doing this storyline and creator A and B really want to be a part of it. That's the advantage of the readers because there's motivation and enthusiasm. You're going to get great stories. I think it'd be a sorry state of affairs if we never got a Blackest Night because I thought that was terrific. So, I mean, that's...
Exactly. Amen. That's what I was rambling about, and that's the kind of mindset I'm going into this. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at on it. So, but on the other hand, if nobody has any events in mind for 5 years, I don't really care either. I just want great stories. So, I'm happy either way. But I agree with him that I like the idea of the more open-ended nature of you don't have to do 6-issue arcs. Now, I like, actually, when it makes sense. I don't like it when it's forced, and I think that's what Greg's getting at here. I don't like it when it's forced that, you have to react to event A that's happening over in Book B. But I do like it when a creator goes, oh, wow, there's something cool. I'll use his Vicky Vale example. If something cool happens with Vicky Vale and Batman, and there's a reason to have a reaction in Superman for a storytelling purpose, then do it. But on the other hand... if there's no reason to have a reaction, don't. Yeah. Or so I'm very torn on that. I don't think the books have to be completely divorced, and I don't think they're gonna be. I think what you're going to see is books having really strong identities, though, and a lot of these books are being set up to be books that have really strong identities, and I'll be curious to see if they do some kind of company-wide crossover, what it'll look like, because not all of the books are happening in present day.
Well, eventually I think they will be.
Well, no, I'm talking about like your Etrigan book's not going to be present day. That's set in medieval times, and you're going to have
the Wild West and the war. Okay, yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, and that war book, I don't know if that's going to be set in the current DCU or if that's going to be in its own continuity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't, a lot of these books, until we see what the layouts of them are, we'll see what titles could lend themselves to that. I'm not in any mad dash to have a big event, though. I think September is a big event.
Yeah, and though it's funny because as you're mentioning this, how cool would it be that if the Etrigan book initially launches something or initially introduces a concept, then it's continued on, it reappears in the Western story, and then it continues on in the present day, and then it ends in the Legion in the future.
Oh, yeah. See, and that would be...
something like that. That, for me, I think would be an awesome kind of story where you have these different books that have really nothing connected to each other except they each discover the same event, and based on the previous reactions to it, affects how it is to them, and then how they deal with it. Is in the next life.
And if the writers creating it and the creative teams were motivated to do that story, that would be a cool story. Because the second you said that, I'm like, I just got done saying that those books would never be connected and that type of thing, and you just gave a great example where they could be, and how cool would that be? And you're right, that was a cool example. If the creators who are on those titles were motivated to do a crossover like that. So I like crossovers. I don't like forced crossovers. I like crossovers where the creators are creatively driven to tell a different kind of story, because they got together, they put their heads together and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this?" And like something like you just threw out right there, Jim. That was a great idea. So something like that I would love to see. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with all that. I don't think books need to be forced to be together. I don't think we did have an era of crossover events, and this was throughout comics where the crossover was kind of forced and everyone had to be a part of it. And I'm not a fan of that. I think nowadays events have kind of evolved to where they do these events where certain titles are a part of it, and there's a big satellite mini that kind of tells you the main story. And then in some cases it'll tie into regular books, like for Booster Gold, for example, in FlashPoint. But then Blackest Night did that, where there was certain books that tied into Blackest Night from the main DCU titles. But then they do these minis that kind of fill in the blanks for the other characters because there's not really a point to plug it into the regular main series for those characters. So, I don't know. I'm kind of a fan for just letting the story decide how to handle that and the creators decide how to handle stuff like that. And I don't want to see the end of events. I want to see events that are story-driven, like the ones we've been getting. I don't know. There's not a DC event that I'm like, geez, I liked Final Crisis. I liked Infinite Crisis. Blackest Night was terrific. Sinestro Corps War was amazing. I don't know. I want to see more of that stuff if the creators have a good idea. And there's a lot of creators who haven't had a chance to do something like that who I think would do a great one, that I would love to see them eventually do it. So, and if I don't get it for 5 years, I'm just as happy as well, as long as, like Greg's saying, we get strong, well-developed stories along the way. I'm thrilled to hear his enthusiasm, though. You know what I'm glad to hear? And this is something that was really cool about Greg's, because I was geeking out during, even though like I'm kind of in a different place, I was geeking out during his voicemail, actually all the ones that we got. We just had 3 calls with very unique perspectives, and they're reading their comics in a very different way. Greg's excited about September for a very different reason than I am, and yet we're both excited about it. So I'm hoping that there's a variety of people who are excited about September for just different reasons. And they could be picking up the whole line, they could be picking up a couple of books, whatever approach. I'm hoping that there's some buzz being generated where maybe people are looking at these books differently and jumping on for maybe a completely different reason. It sounds like Greg might try either some, maybe sticking with some titles that he has, or maybe coming back to titles maybe he hasn't been reading in a while because of this approach to storytelling that he's excited about. So that's cool. I don't know, whether we agree or not on the reasons why September's cool is irrelevant. I like that he thinks it's cool for a different reason. I don't know. You and I don't 100% agree on everything that we're liking for September, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's cool. It's a great voicemail. So thank you to all 3 callers this week. Please consider calling our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434. Or if you're on Skype, it's Dr. Norge on Skype, and that's on our show notes and in the website as well. And whether we agree, disagree, whatever, we love having you part of the show because, it might not be the way Jim and I see things, but there's a listener, I'm sure, listening, a bunch of listeners who are listening who might have, that perspective as well, and they were just looking for somebody to speak up and say that. So you're connecting with those people as well, so we appreciate that. Jim, I actually want to shout out something else. The last 4 or 5 months have been really good for our show on stats-wise, numbers-wise and things like that. And I don't, always put a ton of weight into that, but it's been consistent. That we seem to have been picking up a new audience base of people who either have been coming back to the show, people who stuck with the show, and we thank you for those people that have been sticking with us all along, and some new faces. So I just want to say either welcome back, welcome to the show, and thank you to the people that have been sticking around. We've had a very good few months, and it's really nice. We put a lot of hard work into the show, as every podcaster does. And it's really great to have that kind of support. So thank you to all of you, whatever category you fit in and all that. But we haven't mentioned it on the show, really, and I think it was something that's really neat lately, and it's been a nice motivator for us. So, good stuff.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster!
Jim, there's a number of books I wanted to talk about, and one of them, the reason why I really want to talk about this one, Doom Patrol in particular, the series issue number 22, we're getting to the end. This series is one of those that's closing off and ending, and we're not going to get another one in the new DCU, at least right now. We're going to get Robot Man is appearing in the anthology title, I think, or somewhere. We're seeing. I know we were seeing him in some title. Where he's going to be presented. I thought it was the anthology title, but
I think so.
Yeah, I'm going to be glad to see that character back. But this has been a series that really has grown on me over the 22 issues. I've really enjoyed the quirkiness of it. I love how this all wraps up, though. We have this situation on Oolong Island where Mr. Somebody has taken over Oolong Island, has taken over the president, and he's kind of running things all around this area. He's got his own little company going, and he's making a political play, and the Doom Patrol is doing everything they can to try and stop this and prevent it from happening. And they're dealing with all these weird, quirky, supernatural things, like people being teleported to Antarctica and stuff like that. I mean, it's getting a little crazy. And the fact that they've got an opposing team made up of some members who used to be part of Doom Patrol and other enemies that they've had over time, who is ready to take them out. Now, it's clear from reading this issue that, this would have been some great storytelling to continue going on with the series if there had been more time, like where there was a developing of really an opposing force that could have been utilized over a long stretch for, big arcs and stuff. But I love how this whole thing gets wrapped up. They're having, and it's the reason why I wanted to shout this out, because it was so brilliantly funny. The enemy, the Danny, first of all, who's the sentient house, takes over the island and starts getting ready to shift everybody off the island. But then Ambush Bug shows up, whispers in the enemy, Mr. Somebody's ear, telling him about the sales on FlashPoint and what's going on. and basically, now, did they leave because they knew the book was ending?
Yes. That's completely how I took it. And you know what? When I first read it, I was like, what? And then I just stopped and started thinking about, all the goofy and craziness that has happened in this title and with these people. I'm like, that fits. That fits this title for me. That's just a bizarre ending that, what? Okay, any other book, I'd be angry by it. But the fact that Ambush Bug fits in the title, and he was actually, a good part, a good, fun moments in this book, I was like, okay, this actually was a great ending for it.
Well, Ambush Bug is known for breaking that wall. He's one of those characters that will talk directly to the audience. So that worked for me. And it was a fun way to wrap up this series. It's a quirky book. It's always been a quirky book. And that's what's really worked about Doom Patrol. And something I'm going to really miss about it is it's been a different sort of read. I don't want every one of my books to be like Doom Patrol, but I really dug this book for its unique nature, its humor, and yet it got into some really deep psychological stuff with the characters, especially with Calder's relationship with them and how he was really manipulating their weaknesses, both physically and emotionally for his own purposes to get what he wanted out of them. I loved that about this series. And I really wish it was continuing on because it's a book. I don't know if you're in the same boat I'm in. I've been a casual fan of Doom Patrol, but this has made me a major fan of Doom Patrol. I've become very fond of this book.
Doom Patrol for me is the book that talk about slow build. It was beyond slow build. I was at the point multiple times where I was ready to drop it because I was like, this just isn't my vibe. And then I'd read one part of a story and go, oh, that was kind of cool. Oh, that was, and I started seeing different stuff. And it was kind of like I started understanding the quirkiness and just the, why, what makes it different, what makes it interesting. Because I always, when I first were exposed to them, I wanted it to be like any other title where the heroes made sense and they have some flaws, but I wanted it to basically still follow a general traditional comic guidelines, and Doom Patrol never did, and that was always something that was throwing me off. And it wasn't until I started embracing and really accepting and understanding the differences that really made me enjoy the book. And just as I said, that Ambush Bug ending with him explaining that the book is being canceled, so you guys might as well take off, was just a perfect ending. And I was just like, this is outstanding. This is wonderful. This is absolutely hysterical. And I really enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, this is a great ending for this book. So long, Doom Patrol. Hopefully I'll see you again someday. But I don't think we're going to see it in a long time.
But I love this. I think you won, and Ambush Book goes back with, think again. What's that supposed to mean? And, at the end, first of all, the book being canceled, I think that's what he was nodding about. But also the fact that Niles Calder was released by somebody. And that's the cliffhanger ending of it. I love the next issue bit. Oh, right. Never mind. Such a great, great book. And you see, I think it looks like... He looks like one of them's got like a tissue up by his eyes because of the book being ended. I don't know. I really liked this series. It had a lot of charm to it. And I'm really sad. I'm glad I got to read it for 22 issues. And I'm really sad that it's gone. Because it was funny. This was one of those books where initially I was attracted to Metal Men when they had the co-feature. Like that was more of where, I was focused on this, but at the right time, this book was picking up as we started finding out that Metal Men was no longer going to be the second feature in this. It was just going to be Doom Patrol. And we had some of those solo issues spotlighting characters.
Yeah.
Especially Elastigirl, when we got into that whole psychological thing with her, and then the issue with Negative Man, where it got to focus on him. I think some of those spotlight issues were really crucial to making me not a casual fan, but really caring about the team as individuals and who they were. This book really is something that if you missed it, I highly recommend picking up the back issues or picking up trades or whatever you can grab on Doom Patrol. This is really a good run. That it's similar to books like Rebels, where it's worth reading the whole thing and seeing how it built to a crescendo. And I really, the ending, I know for people listening, you're probably like, that's a weird ending. You got to read the book to understand why it's so Doom Patrol.
and it's just so fit. And it's one of those things where I chuckled, and then it was beyond just a chuckle. Like, okay, yeah. For any other title, I'd be angry with this type of ending. For Doom Patrol, it fits, and I accept it, and I like it.
It's one of the things when we talk about like diversity in comics, because that's been a big topic lately. And, a lot of times when we talk about diversity topics, we talk about character backgrounds, and that tends to be our focus there. Also if a character is male or female, gender, race, things like that. I'm also, diversity in comics in diversity of the types of titles that are being put out. And one of the things I'm very excited for in September, hopefully with the relaunches and some of the buzz, the positive buzz, and even the negative buzz, because the negative buzz at least is making some noise. I'm hoping some of that buzz will get people to try out some of these quirky titles like a Doom Patrol. Things like Mr. Terrific that's going to be coming out, Captain Atom. A lot of these titles where they're characters that you're like, oh, really? They're launching that character into their own title, and they might give it a shot, like a Batwing and stuff like that. Firestorm's coming back, which is a character I've always loved. And, DC's got a lot of rich, diverse, unique characters. And diverse not just because of, racial or gender backgrounds, but, unique stories and unique storytelling opportunities. That's how you get new types of characters, and that's how you get them launched and ultimately hope they become successful. But people have to try those things. And not only do they have to try them, they have to let people know they like them. And I'm hoping that we see a lot of people, and I'm going to once again give a shout out. In September, if you read a book and you like it, let people know. Go on a blog, go on a forum, whatever, and just say, hey, I read this book, really surprised me at how much I enjoyed it. I'm not saying make things up. I'm saying get passionate behind the books that you're digging and let people know about them. Because, I'd like to see in September them have some success with some of the titles that look like they're going to be quality titles, I should say. And hopefully people supporting them by not just reading them, but by letting others know about the ones that they're really enjoying. And giving DC that feedback that, hey, out of your 52 books, here's 5 that I really dug, and I'd like to see more of this kind of thing from you. So, because a lot of times we hear a lot of the negatives when I go to conventions and like when I heard the panels, a lot of people getting up with negatives, and none of that was mixed with, hey, and just to let you know, I really dig this. This is why I came to this panel, because I dig this. I think it's really important to give them that feedback to let them know what you want more of. It's just as important as letting them know what you don't like. And I don't always see that balanced. And I really think it's critical in September and October and November for us to really be letting not just DC know, but other fans know what they should be trying out. Whether it's a big-name character or somebody smaller. Because I really, in order for them to see that this is successful, we need new readers on these titles. Otherwise, it's not successful.
Yeah, and in a way, comic book fans are some of their own worst enemies. Because we have so many times where we jump out to say, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. Anybody who's not, reading it, or who's not like Green Lantern movie, I think is a good example. Uh-huh. So many people went out and just said how much they disliked this part, or I didn't like this, I didn't like that the non-comic book fans were going, I don't know if I want to see this. If the comic book fans are saying they didn't like it, I'm not going to go see it. And that was one of the things that, and I actually had commentary from people I worked with, because when they asked me what did I think, I told them how I liked it. I thought it was a good good solid movie, and it was a good Green Lantern movie. And people were like, really, I'm hearing this. That is, like, yeah, no, it's a good movie. Check it out. And I've gotten a couple people who weren't comic book fans who said, yeah, that was an alright movie. I liked it. So I think we can be our own worst enemy in that we throw out what we're disliking before we even say anything, positive or good, or what we're enjoying. And the people who aren't reading it, who aren't collecting, who aren't doing anything, aren't going to give it a shot if we, the fans, don't enjoy it. So talk about tell the good stuff that you're enjoying. Talk about it's that passion, it's that rage on about something you're passionate about. Let everyone know what you think is awesome. If there's nothing you think that's awesome, well, hey, that's that's your take. But there's got to be something you're enjoying, and if you're enjoying it, talk about it. Because if you tell people about it, if you got that person who's hating one title, and you tell them how awesome your title is, guess what? Maybe they'll pick up your title, and that'll save your title that you're enjoying. So we can win from this.
And otherwise, don't complain when that book's canceled, or when the creative team changes, or when the direction of the character changes because you didn't let your voice be heard that you were liking it. A lot of times the negative voices get heard more because they're vocal and they speak up about it, and people will ignore. Sometimes saying something about it, going, I don't need to say anything about this one. I'm liking it. It's good. I just gotta move on from it. I think it's even more critical to let creators know and comic companies know what's working, because you got to balance out sometimes the negative voice that might be changing the direction of a book that you're really digging. So it's really important to let them know what is working and what you're liking and why. Speaking of a book that I'm really digging and enjoying, Jim, I've really been liking this Teen Titans run by J.T. Cruel and Nicholas Scott. And I know right now that J.T. Cruel had a guest artist on issue 98, but the character that I've really been enjoying was Solstice when she came on the team. And one of the things that I really liked about her was the reaction that Raven was having to do it. Because you got a character like Raven who has had to keep her emotions in check because she's got this darkness in her. She's Trigon's daughter, and she's stuck with it. She's cursed. To constantly be fighting that, to the point where she ended her relationship with Beast Boy. And we've seen in issues of Teen Titans that it's not because she doesn't have feelings for him and doesn't want to be with him. It's because she needs to control those emotions and become more withdrawn in herself and keep extreme emotions at an arm's length. But now she's confronted with Solstice, who's coming on the scene, who doesn't have to hide her emotions. She's, a champion of the light. That's her power is in many ways kind of an opposite end of the spectrum to what's going on with Raven, and her having severe issue to the point where, now, did you think Raven left her behind, or do you think that was something that was out of her control?
I completely think that was out of her control.
I do too.
I think that was Solstice recognizing that she's the one who's, she's the one who can take down the demon. It's up to her and her alone, and this is her destiny kind of moment where, Raven couldn't pull her, away from the battle. She could only pull the others because this was Solstice's battle. This was up to her. It's that epic battle of good versus evil. She was the good, that was needed. And I thought that, and I liked how the team's like, Raven, what the heck did you do? He's like, I tried. I couldn't. I thought that was a cool kind of moment between them.
And the one thing I really liked about that, too, is it looked like it might have been Raven that did. And the team called her on it, and, they stuck behind her on it. But there was still that question afterwards, the team's still questioning me over this. And she had been so protesting Solstice all along that I could see why the team was feeling that way. And I loved that aspect of how the story went. It was very real. We've also got this relationship. We got a relationship that's in turmoil with Wonder Girl and Superboy. And I like how they're on a team together. They have to be friends. They need to be a part of this team. And I get really the impression that Wonder Girl does not want this relationship over. I think deep down, Superboy has accepted the relationship's over and is thinking that she's moving on. And this is one of those where I wish the series was continuing on, because I'm loving the way that they've been handling. It's funny because it's issue 98 now, I don't think we're going to get an issue 100, are we?
No, which I was like, oh, that would have been kind of cool, but it's ending on 99 because 99 should be the last one. And again, just that whole the Superboy, Wonder Girl relationship. I just so want to reach in the comic and give him a smack in the face, say, "Dummy, this won't be over if you don't let it be. You got to fight for a relationship sometimes. This is the time to fight." And I want Tim to, tell him that, or somebody just to kind of shake him awake and just, make him realize that it's not necessarily over. There is a chance that it could survive. And, going forward, this is a story arc that could have been explored. But now, again, this is one of those things where I'm excited about the relaunch. I want to see what's going to happen. The new Teen Titans does have me curious as to where it's going to go. But the Superboy, Cassie story arc is, I wish it could have continued on, and I wish I could have seen, where it goes and what happens between Superboy and Rose, because there's that little flirtation on her end towards him, and there's just a couple different love triangles and whatnot that could have happened in the Teen Titans. So who knows where and what this is going to play out in the coming series. But this was, again, Teen Titans. For me, it was my high point, that it dropped down, then it came back up, and we are ending on a high note for me. These have been some great Teen Titans stories where you really see Titans together, man. You really see the team recognizing that together we are stronger. And this final with the return of Superboy Prime and bringing in his own evil version of the Teen Titans, if you will. I don't know if they got an official name yet. But I love seeing that, return. This is a great way to end it with this epic battle of an opposite versions of themselves. And, kind of curious to see the other Superboy clones or whatever Superboy Prime brought, that he brought the other versions of Connor, what they are, where they come from. I want to see that. I want to see the battle play out.
You're kind of glossing over a lot of stuff, too, though. I mean, first of all, seeing Red Robin back and leading the team and how he knows about their relationships, but also the stuff with Kid Flash. I think their handling of Kid Flash is really brilliant, because this is a kid who was raised in virtual reality, and that's something he found comfort in. Well, they're actually addressing his return. And the fact that, all's not necessarily right with Bart. Bart was murdered. He was murdered by the Rogues. And he knows that. He went through that. And we've never seen him actually deal with that. We go through this VR sequence where he's trying to get payback, extreme payback. And we're finding out that he's going into the VR unit more and more. I mean, look at the look on his face when he's in Titan's Tower and how much it's taken out of him, and what it's doing with the vitals. That's not a workout that he was getting in there. That was revenge. He was getting vengeance. And, that's a sign that emotionally he has not moved past any of that. And he's bottling it in for himself, not letting his team members know, hey, this is an issue with me. That's something I would have liked to seen where the creative team was going to go with it. You're right, I'm ending on a high note. This is what I love about Teen Titans. You talked about the love triangle with what was going on with Superboy, Wonder Girl, and Ravager, but I'm just as into Beast Boy, Raven, and Solstice. The relationships going on there, because Beast Boy's getting closer and closer to Solstice, but then, you see him, he's also, meeting other friends and things like that, getting his confidence up. But, Raven, in the meantime, I think he's felt rejected by Raven. And, we know as readers that that's not the case. There actually is emotion there. And yet Solstice is, also building. I mean, he was in that world trying to go back and save Solstice. And stepping up his game, not being the joke anymore. And that's something that I really have loved about this creative team is they got to the core. What's great about Teen Titans is these characters are well-rounded. Each one of them is unique. Each one of them is a history. And because of that history, there's a perception of them. And circumstances have changed them to the point where that sometimes they try to fall back into their former perception. Other times they need to fight against that former perception to be able to do what they want to do now. And an example of that is Beast Boy really has stepped up in this run to be somebody who before I think was extremely defensive of his role and now is stepping up because he feels as the older, more veteran member of the team, he needs to be that one with the experience helping out with the team and all that. And I really liked in that arc how he handled himself and how we were seeing new forms that he was changing into and how he was, really kind of being a thinking man out there versus just doing the comedy routine. It was great. I really liked. There's not a character in this run that I thought wasn't being utilized, which is interesting because usually there's like a Titan or two that you're like, I can't wait till they do something with this character. But really, everyone on the squad, they had a storyline going with that we were following, and that was something that I think is very hard to pull off, where you can give them enough screen time to feel like you're actually developing something. And this is a template for what I like about team books, where you find ways to make sure that we know everybody who's in the book. And hats off to the creative team on this book. And if you haven't been reading this run since J.T. Cruel and Nicola Scott came on, and obviously we've got a fill-in artist, I should say, on this particular issue with Superboy Prime, you need to start picking this one up in trades because you're missing some really good Titan storytelling.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
The box that that Cassie gives back to Superboy, what do you think was in there?
I don't know. What do you think was in there?
I'm trying to remember from previous issues, or I don't know. That's the thing. I was thinking, could it be like, the sunglasses from when he was, the jacket wearing Slick Boy, Superboy, or is there like a kryptonite or something of him, some of his essence, or I don't know if there was something, or was it something as simple as just, I don't know. That's there's so many different ways. On one hand, I'm thinking it could be something super heroic, something connected to the Superboy, but then on the other part of me is thinking it's connected to Connor. It's connected to Connor Kent. It's connected to just that personal time that they've had.
It's almost a way that they can connect to each other, though, because she said, like he says, we both know it's the right thing to do. I said I'd be there for me. I said I'd always be there for you if you need me. And I meant it, even if we aren't together anymore. So she's giving him something back, but it seems like it's something where, is it a way to connect or contact each other or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
That whole bit with Rose was terrific there, though.
Yeah, I've always liked Rose, and she's a cool character that I hope we get to see signs of her or something. See her in the next universe as well.
I was glad Persuader came back from Terror Titans.
Yeah,
and that they brought back some. It was Indigo back from Outsiders. In that crossover. I mean, it's great to see that they brought back, and they did their research. They brought back a lot of characters from Bart's Run and Flash, from, just not ignoring anybody. Really impressed with their choice on villains and characters they brought in. Very good run, and I'm glad that it's having a chance to wrap up on a high note.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about War of the Green Lanterns, just because, we've got so much stuff to talk about in the next month, and I think if we don't talk about how that book wrapped up, but really the aftermath of it, is particularly interesting because we've had, up to Green Lantern Corps 62, the current issue of Green Lantern, and that War of the Green Lanterns Aftermath issue number 1. I think there's a lot of stuff to discuss with what's going on with Kyle, John Stewart. John Stewart in particular, let's start with him if we could. John Stewart is dealing with the fact that he killed Mogo. Everyone was looking for a reason why he did it. Was this because of the ring that he was wearing? Was he being manipulated? Was it Black Lantern John Stewart? During that moment, Kyle was looking for grasping any straw to try and improve that in that case. And this has put these are two guys who were very close friends. Kyle looked up to John in a big way. And during Kyle's run as Green Lantern, when John didn't have a ring, these two were very close friends. John was a confidant. John was a friend and a mentor who helped him out. These are guys who've had a strong relationship predating Rebirth. So now the two of them have to kind of face off over this because he killed Mogo. And Kyle's question is, was that the only way? I don't know that I believe that was the only way. I would not have done that. Difficult situation. What do you feel about what John did? How do you feel about John's role now having to deal with the aftermath of this?
Yeah, it's funny because, I've read it, reread it a couple times, and me personally, I can't come up with another solution.
Me neither.
As much as I hate to say, killing Mogo was the good plan. Right now, I can't come up with a better solution, and I'm sitting here without any pressure. So it's when you're in the situation, when you're in the pressure cooker, you got to make the chance. You got to make that call. And if he hadn't done it, things would be a lot worse. It stinks not having Mogo. Mogo was just that force that they needed, and he was the, if you will, the heart and soul of the Corps. So losing him is a massive blow, but I don't see another route. And I love seeing that John, just how he's affected now. I hate seeing it because he's a great guy, and I hate seeing, someone go through so much pain, but story-wise, I so enjoy what I'm getting, that this is such a true reaction, a real reaction, but also a fitting reaction for Jon Stewart. And he's the character that I always want to see in these books, that I really enjoy. And I hate why he's in the forefront, but I like seeing him in the forefront. So I know it's a weird combination, thought process, but I'm looking forward to seeing John work through this. I'm looking forward to John, dealing with this and, coming out of this. And I'm wondering and I don't know how he could do it, but is John going to be, take the role of Mogo, take that role of seeking out and finding the lanterns, and just that recruiting when the fallen lanterns, or being that that comfort and that that guide and guardian that the lanterns have come to. Is John going to take over that role, and somehow that's going to be his involvement in the Corps going forward?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. How are lanterns going to be selected? What is going to happen on that end of it? I liked this whole, John was dealing with the fact that he was an outcast, but one of the things I really liked about John in this, Jim, was that he wasn't running away from it. He wasn't making excuses. He was manning up, saying, this is what I did, here's why I did it, and I believe it was the only choice. Kyle gave him a perfect out, where he could have said it was Black Lantern Jon Stewart, and he's like, no. That wasn't what it was. This is the reality of the situation, and I really respect him for that. But as an outcast, these moments where he's with that Karina Vint of Kalados, who's an outcast in her own way. She got a ring during that whole Krona sequence where the rings were being fished out to people who weren't really being selected. So she is the first of her race to be a Green Lantern. And yet people are looking down on her as being a lesser form because she was brought in during that tainted situation. She was brought in and wasn't truly selected in the way that the other Lanterns were. So she's saying, hey, I deserve to be here. I can prove I belong here. And John gives her a chance. And we see how green she is in the rookie sense when she comes to handle diplomacy in her sector. She goes in, guns a-blazing, figuring that we're just going to intimidate, and that's going to bring these people together. Instead, she creates a greater reaction to the situation, where John has to come in and show his diplomacy, show his reason. And in many ways, she becomes respectful of him and his role and what he brings to the table because of the handling of that situation, and seeing that he can push past his own issues in order to do that makes her say, hey, if I can see him in this light and he can see me in this light, the others need to start giving him a chance too. I really loved the storytelling on this because it was a great way to introduce a new character who, I'm a fan of seeing a new Lantern that has a different sort of story to her, and she definitely has a different sort of story. I don't know how much we're going to see of her. I'm hoping this is a character that does stick around and we get to see something of, because I immediately liked her. as they're going all the way through. Kind of like the way I like Sornik when they introduced her as well. And she's become one of my favorites. I'm hoping this is another one that they develop over time. And we've got the Ranian and Thanagarian, our two friends that I like seeing them pop up because they were so well developed in this series. This is the strength of the Green Lantern Corps' books. It focuses on the main players who we all know and love. It's been Kyle and Guy mainly in this series, but now obviously with the changes to the whole shakeup to the Corps, we're going to see John Stewart taking a more prominent role in here. I think Guy is supposed to be taking a prominent role in this book too. So it's going to be great to see the direction this series goes in because the world of the Green Lanterns has changed greatly. And it's something we need to discuss in this segment as we go on to discuss some main changes. Go ahead.
Well, I like the fact that all or most of those non-Green Lantern recruited, are turning in their rings. And most of them are saying, hey, I'm not doing this. And they even showed earlier where people started turning in their rings. And it was Selleck saying, hey, we're suffering from post-traumatic stress. Right now, no one can turn in their rings for the foreseeable future just because who knows what they're giving up. And I like that whole just mindset where someone like, I'm done, I can't do this. Others like, I don't know.
Well, why they're remember why they're turning it in. Kilowog turned his in too because the Guardians were allowing they were assuming the Guardians were allowing Sinestro to keep his ring.
Right.
Which a huge distinction, but you're right. Solek was saying, and he was verifying that they all, including himself. I like that Solek even tested himself. They were all dealing with post-traumatic stress.
It's true. You think about it, that's a very valid statement and a very valid reasoning behind it. And who knows where, when you were sitting there reading comics, sometimes you kind of, you get into it, you enjoy the moment, but when you close the book, your stress levels are gone. If for these characters, what they're dealing with day in, day out, we've said multiple times that just the life of a hero isn't all fun and games. It's it's a pretty nasty job, and I can imagine that the Green Lantern would have one of the worst parts about that because you think about just that pure willpower it takes to run the ring. And just that constant focus. If you just pick one item and one thing to focus on, and you just concentrate on that whatever item, whatever thought process you're doing, and then while you're doing that, walk around and try not to run into things. Just thinking of focusing on one thing, and just imagine flying through the universe while you're focusing on that one thing, or being in a combat situation while you're still focusing and concentrating. Just the Green Lantern, the willpower that would really draw a person, and I could see walking away from it or not wanting to do it, or just reaching that point where the stress in my normal life sometimes gets to be too much, and I need an outlet. I need just somewhere to go. Being a Green Lantern have to be at least a little bit harder than what I'm dealing with.
What's going to be interesting with Hal is, Hal feels he's nobody now, but I think what Hal's going to learn very fast is it's not the ring that made him; it's him that made the ring and made that role. And that's something I'm always a fan of in comics when you get a chance to see who this guy is. Obviously, we know Hal's going to get back a ring. He has to get back the ring. We're going to see Sinestro for a while as a Green Lantern, but there's no way. But let's talk about why Hal doesn't have the ring. Why did they fire him? Because he was able to kill a Guardian. I don't care what other reason that they say, insubordination, all that other nonsense. None of that matters. That's not what it is. They're terrified. The Guardians are scared. This is something that's never happened before. One of their rings was able to kill a Guardian. It was an evil Guardian, granted, but
it was still a Guardian, and I love that. Yeah, I like the fact that the empath, Lantern was able to sense their fear and was able to say, "You don't understand the big picture here. We have the Guardians are afraid. They shouldn't be afraid of anything. They shouldn't feel emotions. They shouldn't feel fear, and yet they are. That's why they got rid of Hal Jordan. That's why we have to stick around, because we got to fix what the problem is." And I thought that was just a cool mindset, and just a whole cool just linking them all together. I'm curious to see if we're going to have Hal with the ring and Sinestro with the ring at the same time.
What's going to be really interesting is to see how Sinestro deals with the fact that he does not want to be a Green Lantern. He wants the ring off. He can't get it off. And why is it that he can't get the ring off? What is driving that? Is it the Guardians? Is it something else? I'm very curious to see where that storyline goes as it progresses. Sorenik and Kyle is something we really need to discuss. The destruction of their relationship, very sad. And I don't know if these are two that can get back together. I'm hoping that they can, because I like them together as a couple, but I am siding with her totally on this one. Dude really goofed up.
Yeah. This is, one, he lied. So
Right.
the initial getting over a lie is tough, but then, when he kind of threw it in her face about the lie even. He's like, hey, I didn't even see your face. I saw hers. And, just a nice 1-2 combo, insult. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? That is not a smart play.
Well, he was already laying in the coffin, and he just nailed it shut. So, I mean, and that's really what it was. The relationship was already being put to rest at that point, and there was an opportunity, I think, to salvage it at some point. But, oh, boy, did he just nail that coffin shut. And we've all been there. I mean, those are situations that happen in relationships. But I was like, oh, Kyle, you blew it on this one. Because she gave him everything. He was her love, and she was under the impression that was a two-way street. And that's why that relationship built and developed. And she did see him. He saw Jade. Now, in his defense, Jade had just died.
Yeah.
So naturally she's going to be on his mind, and I get that. It would be curious to see if it would be Jade now or if it'd be Sorenik. I think it would be Sorenik now. I really do. I think that relationship's progressed that far. Progressed that far. I'm inventing new words. It's progressed far enough that the two of them, I think, are in that place. At least I think so. But I can see where he would be torn. I mean, Jade was somebody he was deeply in love with. Donna Troy before her, but then, the relationship grew into Jade. Jade died. The death of anybody you love, even in a closed relationship, one that's well in the past, you still loved that person at one point in time, and that is going to be something that's going to amplify those feelings. The person's dead. There's that sense of loss that you no longer have that person with you, and I liked how that played out. It was a very well done storyline there.
Yeah, and I liked how just the Indigo Lantern is sitting there, and she's playing out this whole thing to get them to work together. And to her, she didn't kill anybody.
That was a Star Sapphire, not an Indigo.
Thank you. You know what I meant. Hey, I get my colors confused. Okay, Come on.
Well, no, I'm just saying for people that are listening who maybe aren't reading this, who kind of want to decide whether or not they should be jumping out of these books. The Star Sapphires are the ones that are behind love, and she basically was the one who put them in that position to begin with, with that whole thing. And she's trying to correct the relationship and bring them back together by making herself the enemy of them. Which is a clever ploy. Fighting a common enemy would bring two people together and help them to see the strength of their relationship. But unfortunately, that's where things go wrong.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat to see where she comes from, because to her, this was her sacred duty. Because she even says that if it wasn't for her and her crystal, their love would have gone unspoken, and it would never have been. They would have been a couple. So it was her sworn duty to defend it and protect it and try to keep it together. And it's that little moment that kind of sends Kyle over the edge, and that's where I really think he blew it. Because he's like, don't try to pin this on us. I didn't even see her face, and that's where he kind of he's lashing at the Star Sapphire, and that's the point where Sorenik really gets angry. And just the drawing of her, and just as he's trying to explain, hey, I saw Jay, but she wasn't. What if she was? But she's dead, so I chose life. And at that point in time is when he needed to say, hey, I messed up. I was stupid. I should have been honest with you. I should have been open with you. You're an amazing person, and he should have gone through that whole route instead of what he did. And this is one of those artistic moments where, as he's talking, you just see her getting angrier and angrier, and it's even beyond just rage, anger. There is just this deep hurt and just that primal fury inside her. But she does yell at him, say, hey, never talk to me again. But the panel before that, where she's silent and he's trying to explain how I chose you, I chose life, instead of my dead ex-girlfriend, just the look on her face is just, it's one of those artistic moments where I'm like, ooh, that's an angry woman. That's a look I've seen before. So you're done. you're at the this is the Kobayashi Maru. You are in a no-win situation. There's no way you're coming back out of this. And I hate seeing the relationship break up, but seeing just this whole process go through was just a great storytelling moment, and it was very realistic and very true to humanity.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with it. And that's one of the things that I don't know if there's a chance for that relationship to recover, unless he can somehow prove to her that his heart really is with her. And that is possible still. But, I mean, I can understand your relationship's already going down in the dumps, and now you find out that you thought this guy loved you, but really you were at least in the way it's being presented, you were a consolation prize for the dead girlfriend. That's something you never want to go through. So, in that situation, whereas I think if they had been at a certain place in their relationship, they might have gotten through it.
Yeah, it's surprising that a female doesn't want to hear you're a second runner-up. Wow.
A guy doesn't want to hear that either.
Yeah.
It's, there's insecurities to relationships, and that's a normal part of relationships. And, it comes through healthy discussion, and that shouldn't have been kept a secret. That's something where somewhere along the lines they should have had that discussion and how the relationship's grown. And they've gone through so much together. Kyle's death and return, where they were fighting to bring him back to life during those sequences, during that whole Blackest Night thing and all that. I thought was terrific.
Well, the Star Sapphire even comments on that,
right,
that it was, Sarnak's love that, was the defibrillator that brought him back. It wasn't just, the land, it was her feelings, her emotional, her connection, her, oneness with, Kyle. The fact that Kyle was her, her great love, and, that was the thing that brought him back. It was that, that great primal energy that, gave him life again. So the fact that she had such a level for him and he didn't have that for her,
right, was
a huge thing. And again, I don't see how he could pull it off. I don't know how he could explain it, understand it, or make amends. We talked earlier about Roy. Can Roy come back? And I said, everyone's got every sinner's got a future, but there's a price of redemption. I'm going to kind of throw that rule out and say I don't see how Kyle can ever make amends for this, make it right. Maybe they could someday have a professional relationship where she'll accept his help. But personal-wise, anything beyond just two lanterns doing their job, I don't see that ever happening, because she'll never feel like she can completely trust him. And that is the foundation of any solid, true relationship, is that trust. Once that trust is broken, how can you ever 100% give yourself to somebody again? It can never happen. In comic book worlds, though, they're put in extreme circumstances all the time where you're forced to make big choices that can turn change somebody's mind about you. So I agree with you in principle, but I do think there are potential opportunities where he could prove himself through extreme circumstances. In real world circumstances, you're 110% correct. Now, I think knowing that he's going to be going with these new Guardians and he's going to have this new status quo, I don't know that he's going to have much opportunity, but we'll see where that's going to go. And I actually want to see where does she go from here? I see her going back to, I'm worried we're not going to get her as much as we did in the past. I'm worried this is going to, we're going to lose her being around more because of this riff. If Kyle is one of the main characters, we may not see her around because she's trying to avoid him and not be around him.
Well, Kyle's going to be in a different book, Jim. Kyle's not in this book.
Okay. Well, that would explain why she's still in Green Lantern Corps then. Let's throw out what I'm saying then.
Because Kyle's going to be in, I think it's Emerald Warriors. Remember with those new Guardians? He was on a cover with that. So, and that's not to say that she isn't going to be, but that was the book. Remember, that's the one with on the cover. It's got somebody from each corps.
Right. Okay.
So Kyle's going to be in that book. So there's room for her to be in Green Lantern Corps having a role. So I don't know. That's not to say that you're wrong, though, Jim. She might have a lesser role. I hope not, because I think she's been such a...
I don't want to see that either.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that you could be dead spot on, and I'm with you. I'm worried about that. So I hope that that's not the case. Can we talk about Ganthet real quick? Because that whole bit in this, and I'm talking about the War of the Green Lanterns issue number 1. It's this 2-part mini, and he lost his hand, and it was funny how. I guess I did. You have the opportunity to have your hand reconstructed, brought back, and all that other stuff. He's done nothing to take care of that. And St. Walker, just comes up and says to him, "Why have you done nothing about this? You had this opportunity," and he's really feeling responsible. He's feeling down on himself after everything that's happened, and I like how we get to see here what is the strength of the blue ring, hope, and Syed's I guess that's how you pronounce it. The female guardian who Ganthet was, was always partnered up with, who went off with the Orange Lantern. We get to see her back, and during that moment of hope, we get to see his hand be reconstructed, and can imagine that. It's all. I don't know, how much hope are you giving somebody when you kind of tease them with it, then you take it away?
Yeah. The whole time I kind of thought that was going on, that she wasn't actually there.
Oh, I knew that. I'm not, I'm not saying that's the case, but he knew. He didn't know that.
No, he completely thought she was there, and he's like, "Oh, cool! I get to see you again." And it's been, "How are you doing? I can't believe just that." Whole, and then he takes it away, and you even see the look on his face, like, "Oh, what? She's not here? Wait, So that was kind of a. I want to say a sucker punch, just a little 1-2, out of nowhere. Sorry, here you go. Hope you see your love again. Nope, she's not around.
But it's funny, though, seeing her did do something for him, though. It kind of energized him. He's realizing that this is something that's missing from his life, and how could I have gone so long without her? So I think we're going to see him try to recover
Find her or pursue her.
So, I don't know. That's interesting.
Though, to be honest, the one thing they really need right now is Ganthet to confront the Guardians. They need somebody to go in there who can kick in the door and say, "Hey, I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick some ass. I'm all out of bubblegum." And, because the Guardians really need a smack in the face and they need to wake up. And that's the one thing I'm hoping we get from Ganthet, that he can, address some of this stuff that's going on, especially, the fear, especially the fact that the Corps is kind of getting rocked on its foundation now, and they need to come back. They need to rebuild to the true principles of the Green Lantern Corps, and that's what I'm hoping we see out of Ganthet.
Now, here's the thing. We know we're going to see more of Sornik, because you take a look at the 2 issues. She's joining this group. Well, at least we don't have verification that she's joining. She's at least being approached by this group that's going to try and execute Sinestro.
Yeah.
The one with the empath that you were talking about, who knows that the Guardians are afraid. So I really want to see what's going on here, where...
Yeah, I got my money on Sinestro.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
Let's be honest. Even without any Guardian influence, which he may get on his side... those are powerful lanterns, and, they're motivated and, hard charging, hoorah, good luck to you. They don't have a chance. Even Sornek, who is just an amazing, she knows how to throw down, and she's a pretty good fighter. She's nowhere on the level of Sinestro.
Is she agreeing, though? See, we don't see her agree.
Right.
They're approaching her because she hates Sinestro. But that doesn't mean that she is going to agree to murder her dad. There's a difference between hating him and wanting to murder him. Huge difference.
True, yeah. And she may even recognize that I don't know, well, I was about to say she may recognize that there's a chance he could do some good, but I don't think so. She sees just the evilness and just that nasty nature of Sinestro, that she's not going to sit there and say, there's some good in him. She's not going to go for the Anakin Skywalker redemption, thing. I think she's going to let that go. But I don't see her signing up and saying, yes, I'll join this kill party, because, it's that whole doctor mindset where I don't think she's a killer. I don't think and that's the one thing that would stop her from being able to take Sinestro, is just that level of commitment, that there's a difference between a soldier and a killer. There's a difference between a fighter and a killer. A killer has that one little quality in them that, where they can take the life without any hesitation or second thought to it or moment of regret or remorse. A killer can just, bam, see the opportunity, take the opportunity, move on to the next target. Sinestro's a killer. Those other guys are lanterns. She's a doctor and a lantern. I think there's always going to be that slight hesitation, and that's what, I think that will keep her from joining on the mission.
Yeah, the Green Lantern books, it's funny. You come out of a big event like War of the Green Lanterns, and all it's done, and this has, I think, been the strength of Green Lanterns, it's not isolated events. They're ongoing, continuing. Like, it's not like this event's over. Like, this was Sinestro Corps War. Sinestro Corps War ended, but it was the aftermath, and it built and led to things like, Blackest Night and stuff like that. But it was in between. There were so many different storylines that were going on in each of the books. And this is something that I think is a key to these books. They never end. It's not about, bam, an event's over, so we're going to have some quiet time right now. It's one event leads to political intrigue, leads to, a change in a relationship, change in a status quo, and then we follow psychologically what that means to so many different characters from so many different backgrounds. It's funny, we talk about diversity in comics. Here's a title that really is a champion of that. I'm not talking about, that's necessarily represented by every race on Earth or things like that, or, that type of thing. What I mean is, because of the fact that you're pulling from so many different characters in the greater solar system, and these new creatures that are created, I think you get to see the diverse things that maybe all of us as people deal with. I think there's different characters. I don't find that there's one character in the Green Lantern universe that I connect with at any given time. I find there's a bunch of them in a different way that I connect with little elements of them. I don't know if you run into this experience, Jim, but I used to be like, well, Hal's my guy and all that. I'm not in that place anymore. I find that there's a lot of Lanterns that I'm rallying about. Like Sornik's a great example of one of those characters that I really like. Love John Stewart, love Guy Gardner, love Kyle, but I love the Rani and the Thanagarian, that new girl that was introduced in the John Stewart issue. Like, I want to follow her now. And it's all because, sometimes when a character shows strength, I connect with that. I want to be that character. But sometimes when there's some vulnerability and we see a character who's trying to work past that vulnerability, I'm on that character's bandwagon. Sornik, what she's going through right now, trying to, get back into work, to get past, this horrible breakup in this relationship, this big life change for her, because she thought, she was set, she found the love of her life, and this is the direction she was going in. The two of them were going to be together, and that was her future. Now, all of a sudden, that's all changed. And at the core of it is her father, because her relationship started to go downhill because of Sinestro's presence, and because of her being kidnapped due to Sinestro. It's funny how he is directly responsible, so maybe there will be something to her relationship there. But I don't know. Do you find that there's one Green Lantern you're connecting with and identifying with now, or is there more than one?
Well, I kind of feel like Mogo sometimes, broken apart and just destroyed. It was a joke. Probably.
Well, I didn't know where you were going with that. Did you like shooting out rings or stuff like that, or why do you feel all destroyed, Jim?
Yeah, my life is my life. Come on, that's just what there's times when I feel that way, but
I get it. I'm sorry. You feel like Mogo because of circumstances in your own existence that are breaking you apart. Okay. Probably similar to conversations we had off the air.
Yeah. No, but it's funny because as you're talking, I started just thinking and just, I look at different characters and I connect with different characters for different parts of my life. And I always kind of had a connection with John Stewart. There was always just something I always felt like I kind of understood where he was coming from, just the path he's, walked in life and where he is now and what is he? Because that comment I made before about, with a killer, difference between a killer and a soldier. I see John Stewart as a soldier. He's got that level of honor, that level of commitment, that discipline, and if he needs to, he can take a life because as a soldier, you sometimes have to do that. But he's not the killer where it's, boom, I see a target, kill it, move on to the next one, no big deal. For him to actually pull that trigger, for him to actually consciously choose to take the life, that's a big thing in him, and it's a big part of who he is. And that's why, when he did destroy Mogo, when I see just the reaction that when the other Lanterns are coming up to him saying, hey, we want justice for Mogo, you want it? Come on, bring it. let's see what you got. Where he's not backing down, he's not taking the easy way out. He's standing tall, saying, "This is what I did. I chose to do it. I was of my own free will when I did it. I wish I didn't have to, but hey, I made my choice, and now I have to deal with the consequences for the rest of my life." And I like seeing just that side of him, what he's going through. And though I've never actually gone through such an extreme level, there have been times in my life when I had to make the choice where I'm like, okay, I go A or B. This is what I got to do. And once you make that choice, that's it. You can't go back. You can't undo that choice. You just have to continue forward. And if at times you're going to sit there and say, I made the wrong choice, but you know what? I can't undo it. I got to go forward. I got to continue, and I got to push on. And it's moments like that where I really just connect and understand with Jon Stewart. And so, but I can't even say I'm fully 100% all the time with him, because you talked about that new Lantern they introduced, how she's like, I don't deserve this ring. I shouldn't have it. And then she's like, wait, you know what? I can maybe do this. Yeah. I'm going to go to training, and I'm going to actually go through this. And, in Sornak, there's times when, I felt like how just that level of betrayal. And so all of these characters, and I think that's the true strength of the core, isn't just awesome stories. It's you have moments in your life where you connect with all of them. And it's, one of the things that I always say, people say, who's your favorite Green Lantern? And I always say the core is my favorite, Green Lantern, the concept of the core and the stories and the, just what you can tell and what you can do with just this massive, amount of heroes in one point in time, all with a common goal, but different ways of reaching it. So, yeah, so in the short answer, yes, I agree with you that I feel like all of them sometimes. That's the short answer. That long diatribe I just went off on.
Well, no, I mean, it is. I think it's different characters at different times. It's one of the things. I agree with you. I think it's a strength of the book. Jim, can we wrap up with Detective Comics 880?
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. We're on the second last issue of this Scott Snyder, Jock, David Barron run. And what a special book this is. And actually, it's Francisco Francavilla, I think it is. I apologize. I keep butchering his name because that's the artist that was on the second feature, the Jim Gordon one. And he's done full issues now because of the fact that storyline's been blended into all this, which I think I agree it's been better for this book. I think it's this whole James Gordon Jr. Storyline, the backup becoming full issue parts of this, I think has just added to the drama building on this one. This is exactly how you build crime, suspense, drama in a comic, on a film, on television, whatever. We throw out a lot of Hitchcock references on the show. I am a huge Alfred Hitchcock fan. I love all of his films. I've got all of them on DVD. He's one of those filmmakers who just, there's something I connect with in some of his work. There's a lot, very similar to favorite writers in comics. But I love suspense stories that are well crafted and cinematic and just like leave you kind of chomping at the bit and on a ride. This book has been filled with a ride. Jim Gordon has this situation where, his ex-wife is in town. And, she's a victim of the Joker. The Joker knows she's in town, so the Joker's going to use her, victim of circumstance, to get into the head of Jim Gordon because he likes messing with him. And that whole situation with the build-up with her, Barbara, it's me, the Joker, he's out. Listen, I'm sure I'm being overly cautious, but I called hotel security, and we see this moment where, he shows up right there, and Jim Gordon is just 1 second too late. The whole visual build, shifting from the purples to those yellows to the intensity as he's going through, as he's rushing up the stairs to that red when he is in the bathroom, pulling back the curtain. This horrifying, I'm usually a fan of, I'm not usually a fan, sometimes I'm a fan of you don't need to show it. Other times you pull away that curtain like this. You better show it to me, and you better freak me out. That freaked me out.
Oh, big time. That was just that racing to the clock. He's just that 1 minute too late. If he had been there 1 minute earlier, maybe you could have stopped it. And you pull back the curtain. You just see that horrific grin and just the blood, and just I was like, wow, this is really nasty. And it was was just that kind of extreme, even for the Joker. And I thought that was something that I enjoyed. And I love seeing the next scene when we see her in the hospital bed. They got the bandages across her face, across her mouth, so you don't see that horrific grin anymore. Kind of, to help her out, to help her adjust. Maybe it's kind of like holding her face back, or I'm not sure, but I like just the fact that they wrapped up around her mouth so we wouldn't see it still, knowing that the toxins are still there. She still has the effect of the Joker serum.
Well, she was bleeding from where the lips meet, on the cheek area. So, I mean, severe damage was done to her, probably to her gums, to her lips, through the way it's forced open like that. And it is one of those things where this reminded me how dangerous the Joker can be. And that's something that I really liked about this story. I didn't expect the Joker to be, prominently featured in this moment, because I figured, with the whole James Jr. thing, that's something I've liked about this run as well. There have been, Roadrunner and other characters, all the way through who have popped up. When you were expecting one, they give you a swerve over here. You're following this character now, and all the way through it, you get these great moments with Jim and Oracle, where the two of them are kind of analyzing, trying to figure out how to deal with James Jr. in the midst of all this. That's something that there's a nice amount of balance to there being this sub story going on with this bigger main story and who's doing what. And I like that we still at this point don't 100% know, I think, everything about James Jr.
No, we're still learning more of the pieces, and it's more, there's still little bits here, a little bit there coming out. And again, I like seeing, Dick Grayson Batman in this title, and I'm glad it was him. On one hand, you're thinking you want to see Bruce as the great detective, but I'd like seeing the fact that they were going with Dick here, and he's, still getting his feel. He still isn't exactly, he's not as good as Bruce is, and he's admitted he's not as good as Bruce, so he goes and gets help. He calls in for a little assistance here and there, but I like seeing him put the pieces together, and he figures it out in the end, but he's a step slower than, say, Tim or Bruce would have picked it up. And I like seeing him try to lay it out, him try to figure this out, and even just his dealings when he starts having his one-on-one confrontation with the Joker, how that goes. I thought that was just a great play out and a great build-up to where this is going.
I like that I felt the conversation between, when Jim's really down, talking about, are we really doing any good here? Or are we making things worse? Really running through just multiple different scenarios with everything that's going on. What is this city at its core unsavable? And, that sense of doubt would be something that you would get from years of working in Gotham and stuff. And it's funny how I think that conversation would have gone very differently with Bruce. And that's great writing, where I felt that was totally Dick Grayson responding to the situation. I think Bruce, in many ways, would have been more comforting to Jim. I'm talking about, when I say Bruce, I'm talking about Bruce in the Batman outfit, because Bruce Wayne, I don't think, would have been able to have the conversation with him that he would have had wearing the cowl. Yeah. But I liked that when I saw Dick Grayson there, I'm like, okay, this is exactly how Dick Grayson would handle it. And I thought Dick did a great job, but I think it would have gone very differently if Bruce handled it. That's very good attention to knowing what character you're with, what the actual relationship with the two is, and that. Those tiny details throughout this detective run has made this. It's been my favorite one of the Dick Grayson Bat books, and that's not knocking the quality of the other books. I think they've been terrific, but this has been the one month in, month out. I've been like, oh my God, has this been? It's my favorite. You know what? Right? I'll go on a limb. This is my favorite right now Batman title out of all of the Batman books, meaning just the ones featuring a Batman. And it's been because of this storyline and this build. Gorgeous art, really well-developed suspense. I think a 12-issue arc on this one worked. I like that, and I like that it seems like the new DC and the 52 aren't going to be focusing on saying you have to do 6-issue arcs. You have to do this kind of number of arcs. This book works in a 12-issue arc for me, but I don't think every title should have that. I think that... I think that storytelling and creators should be free to say, I'm going to do a 2-issue arc here, I'm going to do a 3-issue arc here. And I like that the focus on, at the panel, they mentioned, the focus is on, we'll collect it, however's necessary, based on how the arcs play out and that type of thing. That is, it always should be storytelling that drives that, and I love that. Novels and books don't have a set page count. The page count's driven by the story that's between the pages, and this is the way it should be for comics as well, so I'm glad to see that kind of focus, because this is a great example of a story that just worked better as a 12-issue arc. Definitely
got to agree on that. And just, it's one of the sequences that I thought was just so cool was, as I said before, just the confrontation between, Dick and the Joker. And the fact that the Joker knows that this isn't Bruce, and he even knows that this is the original Robin, because he keeps referring to him as Little Bird. And just that he knows exactly who he's up against, and just the whole mind play, but it's not even just mind play. It's not, it's the Joker being the Joker. It's that psychological psychopath who is just doing what he does. And that, for me, again, is that clever writing of the villain, knowing and understanding who you're up against.
Wait a minute, hold on a second, hold on. I don't mean to, and I'm not disputing anything you're saying right here. We just got done saying that the Joker did this to Barbara Gordon.
Right.
He didn't do it.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm correcting myself, not you. So I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I'm like sitting here because I got caught with this the first time through reading it, and the second time through, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cool to see that from this standpoint. And I just did it again. I just got caught again by it. We know who did this. It wasn't the Joker who did this to Barbara. Can we just say it's James Jr.?
Yeah, it's James Jr. I kind of thought we were just going to wait until the end and say that. And
no, because I think it's silly, because we're not telling. When we do these bits, these segments on the show, it's not about telling somebody the story the way it's told in the comic. It's about reacting to what happened in the comic. And I think if we wait to discuss that, I think we're missing an important point here in plot development. That was super cool to go back through and I do encourage people, go back through and read it again and read that situation and those panels. It's why I tell people to read the story again, because it's really cool to kind of read and see that through.
And the great thing about this story is this whole time, I know James Jr. is a psychopath. I know he is just this killer who's just trying to make the rest of the world a mad psychopath like him. And as this was playing out, I was still thinking it was the Joker. It really wasn't until just this whole Joker montage that he's talking and taunting Batman, but also explaining to him just the way things are, and the way they've always been in Gotham. And in the end, there when he's like, "It wasn't me," I'm like, "Oh my God, it was Junior." I'm like. He used the Joker gas, and he used because they even talk about how it's an old strand, and I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. Why? And the whole time I know he's a bad guy, but they still were able to pull me into the Joker. And that for me was the strength of the writing. Even though I knew the truth, I still was looking at the Joker. I still was going through, and even the read through, it's still a great reveal and a great, that we have this big, huge spoiler that we already know, but you still play it out as it's going through. And it's, I love that about just the way this is paced, the way this is written. It's a beautiful mystery story, and just everything about James Jr., how it was laid out, where we get these clues, and like, is he good? Is he bad? Has he reformed? I don't know. And as it's still playing out, you're still surprised in the end when you find out, yes, he really is a psychopath. Yes, he really is a killer, and he is out to destroy everybody. So I love just how this played out, and I've read this and I reread it again, and even when I'm rereading the issues, I'm still surprised by the ending, even though I know what it's going to be. And that, for me, is a sign of the writing, the artistic style, meshing with the story, and just a beautifully laid out, paced out mystery that even though I know the answer, I'm still shocked by it. And I just absolutely, this is one I want to collect and I want to, read again. And just, I so highly recommend anybody pick this up if you like the detective, the mystery stories, and just that kind of noir type of, non-traditional comic book appearance and style. This, for me, is one of those great artistic moments.
One of the things that it was glossed over, and I want to make sure we talk about it, it wasn't just Dick's confrontation with the Joker. It was the Joker's reaction to it. He was down there to get away because he was trying to rest, regroup, and all that stuff for when his Batman came back, because he knew it wasn't his. So he's known all along it's not his Batman. He came down here for that purpose, and he's annoyed and, in many ways, just offended that it's not his bat. He wants his sick Batman, and this guy isn't going to cut the mustard on this one. And I love this, the bullet wound on his head, still there and everything. Just great attention to detail. Really, really creepy look. I loved the different light sourcing. I'm always a fan of that when you start seeing, as you shift from scene to scene to scene, you see, depending on if you're facing the Joker or if you're facing Batman, you see different light sourcing, from, bright light into our eyes and it was just a really well done use of, the situation, knowing where the character was. And I'm really anxious to see the ending of this one, because I think it's an oversized ending to this one, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think so.
Yeah, this is one of those that it's coming to a crescendo nicely. And like I said, I want to clarify again for anyone that's reading other Bat books. I don't want anyone to think I'm not liking the other creative teams, because I really am. I'm enjoying what's going on in Batman Inc. Dark Knight, I'm going to say Dark Knight, the last 2 issues with them being released regularly, that's a book that's starting to grow on me more, because I'm starting to get into, like, where's Finch going with this storyline, and so I'm glad that we're going to get up to issue 5 and get an ending to that arc, and then he's going to have a writer, a co-writer, or, I think Phil Huster's doing the actual main writing, and Finch is doing the art off of his plot. It's off of a Finch plot, I think. But I'm glad to see that, that book's going to be getting back on schedule. But Batman's been great with Tony Daniel, but this has been a book. There's something about how special this one has been that has just set it apart from even Batman and Robin for me. Just with the how well it's written, the artistic styling of it. It reminds me of what I liked about books like The Shield. When it was out. There's something stylized about this. It feels different. It feels fresh. And for a Batman book to have that kind of feel for me, that's very odd and very rare. And this is one of those stories that it fits up there with like a Hush and things like that, where I do want to see this eventually collected in an absolute because of the art. This is good. This is really, really good looking art.
Oh, yeah. This final page, the final page where, James Jr. is basically attacking Barbara. Yeah. That was also another cool moment, because you see him kind of looming over there. Hi there, sis. Aren't you happy to see me? And then the next is like a partial path panel where you see the actual attack, and she's, in a way shocked, screaming or whatnot. I want to see that fight. Now, I don't know if we're actually going to get to see it, but Babs knows how to throw down. This isn't, Barbara Sr. This isn't someone who's just going to roll over and, oh no, what's going to happen to me? Woe is me. Barbara can fight, and I don't know if James Jr. realizes how much of a butt kicker she is. And that's something I'm kind of curious about, to seeing where this is going to play out and what's going to happen here. Because on one hand, I want to see Barbara take him down by herself because she's that cool. But on the other hand, I want to see him kind of get one up on her somehow and see the whole Gordon family deal with this. I don't know if I don't know how much of it's going to be just the Gordons, if Dick's going to be able to make it back there in time. How is this going to play out? That's my curiosity.
Well, here's the funny thing, too. Barbara had discovered it was him right before he showed up on the scene. Jim Gordon knows it's him because of that. And I love the reaction page for everybody. I thought was another great page. And I don't want to gloss over that one. First of all, I love the whole bats, kind of flying in the background and, being a part of the shadowy sequence of it. It reminds me what I liked about Batman Begins and The Dark Knight with their opening sequences and all that. But that was super cool. But that just the reveal of that leading to that climactic big page you were talking about was, woo. The pacing of this is just, to me, I also like the fact that they play with the panels. Like, there's not, like, every page does not have to have the same kind of panel set up. Each page, they have fun with it. This is what comics are all about to me. They're an art form. Do something, be creative, do something a little different, play around with it, make me go, wow. After 30 plus years of reading comics, to have a Batman book, make me go, wow. And I'm not saying that to diminish anything Batman books. I think Batman books have been amazingly cutting edge all the way through the 30 years for me. It's why I stay with the character. It's not just the character. It's that the creative teams that take on Batman, I think, just push themselves to outdo the big stories of the past, the ones that everybody knows, and kind of step up their game. And this is a great example of that, just stepping up the game and just doing something a little better. If you're reading Detective Comics and you're not reading American Vampire, and you're not reading The Gates of Gotham, especially Gates of Gotham for any Batman fans out there, Scott Snyder's co-writer on Gates of Gotham. This is a writer who you need to watch. His stuff that's coming up in the 52. I know he's doing Swamp Thing in the new 52 as well as writing Batman. He's just one of those writers that he's a name I'm going to follow now. I really dig his stuff.
Definitely, yeah.
It's nice that there's multiple writers at DC. I think are just worth following as writers, and I like seeing new names in there versus the classic favorites and things like that, because it's more people to follow. I'm a fan following creators, writers, artists, colors. Now I'm following. David Barron did the colors on this. He's been terrific. Our friend Alan Pasolacqua, I follow him. Art Lion. I like that Jason Wright, who's on Teen Titans.
Yes.
There's certain people who I'm following now for their color work, which is really interesting. This is what comics are all about. This book, I'm glad that we got an opportunity to kind of wrap up talking about this one, because it's been terrific.
You won't get away from me this time, Buster.
Once again, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, this week's one of my favorite weeks because it's the week where we start to see all the amazing deals they're going to be offering for August 2011. They always offer anywhere from 35 to 75% off, just amazing deals all the time. So be sure to check out their site, see what kind of bundle offers they're offering, see what kind of hardcover trade offers they're offering, single issues, all across comics, whatever you're buying. And remember, they've got toys, statues, games, everything that you could possibly need from the previous catalog is going to be available on DCBService.com. So it's a one-stop shopping service for your pre-order needs. InStockTrades.com. Remember that we're going to be doing League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but anybody that's been out there that's been saying, hey, there's some hardcovers, some trades that I want, remember that $50 for free shipping, because that's a great way to bundle up and save some money on shipping for those great deals, because they're always offering discounts on that site, but it's a great chance. But League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Volume 1, $14.95 regularly, 38% off, only $9.27. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. Jim, our next episode, we're going to continue doing what we did on this episode. We're going to be talking some of the comics that are just released. There's a lot of series that we haven't had a chance to talk about in a while that I want to make sure we throw in, but we also want to spotlight some of the favorites that are kind of going on right now. So I don't know what we're going to be discussing next week. We're going to kind of follow the same format we did on this one, and Jim and I are just going to grab books that we've been really enjoying over the last few weeks and chat about them as we kind of do a send-off to the current DC universe in line 52 in September. So which we're going to have no extra time in September because we're going to do all 52 issues. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that in 4 or 5 episodes, how many episodes it's going to take us to do it, but we're going to do every single issue of the brand new series on the show. So
let's do it in one issue. One episode, one mega episode, all 52 issues.
18 hours. There's no sleep, just a podcast. We would be dead. I'm really excited, though. We're going to try to keep up with each week. The new titles are being released, but I have a funny feeling that just, if we get into tangents on the books that we're enjoying, it's probably going to take us longer than 4 or 5 episodes to discuss those books. But we want to do them justice and talk about what we're liking, what we're surprised by, and what hopes we have for those books in September. So lots of exciting things coming up, and we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman. Times are closing in, be they then guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for